of the treasurer. So the treasurer ensures that the league budget and resources are consistent with our policies and goals. I learned how our city operates by being on the budget committee before I was elected to city council. So it's in putting together the budget and understanding how it works that helps you understand how an organization works and prioritizes its work. So my involvement in the league in the past has been on the board of directors. I did do a 3-year term, which I enjoyed immensely. I've also served on policy committees for transportation and community development. And I've also helped be a presenter on very important issues surrounding housing and homelessness at League of Oregon City conferences. I can commit to the 5 board meetings in 2021. One of the reasons I didn't return to the board when my term expired was I was serving as the chair of our Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I have completed that term of service and left it in extremely capable hands and returned to my role as one of the members of the board of directors, no longer on the executive committee after December of this year. The challenges facing the league today are how we help a very diverse membership navigate very difficult conditions of a rapid change brought about by action to remove barriers to equity and diversity, also brought about by COVID, changing how we work and live and educate, and the wildfires that have devastated communities, our partners, our neighbors, and right here in our area in the Santiam Canyon, but also across the state. Another challenge that we face is helping resource members with accurate and up-to-date data and skills to effectively govern our cities in a way that builds collaborative community engagement. And finally, to make sure that the League of Oregon Cities and all of us have a strong advocacy with the state leadership where we can partner effectively and where cities need to be able to be flexible to accomplish our work without regulatory barriers that prevent us from doing the job that we know needs to be done for the people in our community that will accomplish goals, perhaps in a way that wasn't prescribed in legislation, but also gets the job done. We know that we've been facing those issues, and together we can continue to advocate for and grow the League of Oregon Cities and the effectiveness of all the cities from Greenhorn to Portland in Oregon. Thank you very much.
Hey. Thank you, Mayor. And does anyone from the nominating committee have a follow-up question for Mayor Clark? Let's see if I can see who's up here. Anyone from the nominating committee?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, CM.
Hi. You briefly mentioned equity and inclusion, so I'd like you to speak a little bit more. The League of Oregon Cities has recently formed an Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, and I'd like to hear from you what 3 actions the board and the treasurer is a part of that could take to advance DEI work.
So the first step has already been taken with some of the outstanding training that has been offered to us this year from the National League of Cities that's really helped inform us about what does that look like? How does it translate into action that actually moves the dial for people in our community? The Oregon Mayors Association training that we got this year was incredibly effective in helping us understand what it looks like, how to go look for and dig deeper into our own city operations and our ways of doing business to make sure that we are adopting and using an equity lens. One of the things our city has done this year with the help of the model charter from the League of Oregon Cities is completely rewrite our charter, removing discriminatory language as well as updating how our charter is laid out so it's more transparent. So the kind of tools and trainings that are offered to us can be extremely helpful in informing us on how we can do our jobs and do it better.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. We appreciate your presentation, your response to the question. The next person that
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to put my hand up. Could I just ask a question too, please?
Well, I'll make one exception this time for you, Commissioner Fritz.
I'm sorry. So
from now on, we got to go do one a piece here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Wait, it says that we each get a question.
We can't do that. We'll be here all night if we do. We really can't do. Everybody cannot have a question because we'll be responding to everybody the entire night. So I've limited it to one for the committee itself. So, and I think I'm going to have to keep that rule solid. So, not Mayor Fritz, but Commissioner Fritz, I think we're just going to have to move on to be fair to everybody else. Because if I give you a question, that'll be two, and then we'll have two questions for all of the other candidates. And like I said, we will be here all night. So
with respect, Mr. President of the Council of the committee, the treasurer position is the most important because it's basically president-elect. So could we perhaps just for the treasurer position have two members of the committee asking a question?
Well, is that something that the rest of the committee wants to agree to?
This is Keith. I'd agree to that for the treasurer response.
What's that, Mayor Mays?
I would agree to
do two?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay.
I'd agree to do three if that was the will, but two, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think two is okay. Like I said, I don't want us to get too caught up because we have some time constraints. So again, so let's Commissioner Fritz, why don't you go ahead and ask the second question, and then we'll have two questions for Mayor Drotzman and two questions for Mayor Callaway.
Mr. Evans, I might suggest that maybe just we have a friendly agreement to rotate the questions around so everybody has an opportunity to at least ask a question.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that.
Thank you.
Again, most folks are, some people are going to be a little more excited than others. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Commissioner Fritz, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you. I appreciate your
something down here.
Mayor Clark, other than your involvement in the League of Cities, what have you done to collaborate with city council members from other parts of the state?
Thank you very much. Mostly my work has been regional for the Marion, Polk, and Yamhill areas with the Council of Governments. Our Transportation Area Commission is the 3-county area. Also, the work on the Homeless Initiative, which is now the Homeless Alliance, grew from Salem, Kaiser, and a more focused work to now pretty much span Marion and Polk counties. Also, I represent SCATS, our MPO on OMPOC, which is the Oregon Municipal Planning Organization Consortium. That's a mouthful, but it's an opportunity that was created way back in about 2006, 2007, as I was coming on city council and representing Kaiser on our MPO to gather with and meet with the MPO representatives from across the state. And that's been a tremendous opportunity to learn our common areas of interest regarding transportation policy, design, eco-friendly options and things like that, and also finding our common areas of concern. And we found over time that we had more things in common than we did in difference, even though we had urban and rural communities involved in OMPOC. So that's been a tremendous opportunity for me to be able to meet with and develop relationships with people who are working for their cities across the state. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for the answer.
All right. Okay, let's move on to the next candidate, Mayor Dave Drotzman. Mayor, go ahead, take it away. You've got 5 minutes to plead your case.
I didn't know I was up for trial there, Mr. Evans. Hi, I'm Mayor Dave Drotzman, City of Hermiston, candidate for Treasurer of the League of Cities Board of Directors. I want to start by thanking Mayor Callaway and Mayor Clark for their willingness to lead this great organization, and to the other 26 applicants for their service to their cities and for their willingness to volunteer to sit on the League of Cities Board of Directors. I think it speaks volumes to the hard work the Board of Directors and the League of Cities staff have done to become a high-performing organization. People want to be part of something worthwhile and exciting. Also, thank you for your time this evening and truly for your commitment to the cities and the good work that the LOC does for its members. I know we were supposed to answer the 5 questions as listed. However, I think most of those are answered in my application, which you've all been given a copy of, and I'll try not to duplicate those answers. I see the role of the treasurer as those established in the recent bylaw adoption, as well as the recent finance committee formation. I will work to fulfill those roles to the fullest. Personally, I'm fiscally frugal. Over the last 20 years, I've built a multi-million-dollar medical practice from the ground up. I'm very familiar with private sector P&L and balance sheet statements. I've also served in the public sector for 8 years on the Hermiston School District Board of Directors and Budget Committee, as well as 8 years with the City of Hermiston and its Budget Committee. As the mayor, I worked with our business department to create reports that were more user-friendly, meaningful, and transparent. The reports you see today at the LOC are a similar project I helped to support in my 2.5 years on the board. I've sat alongside each of you at one point. The one thing you should know about me is that I'm not afraid to ask tough, probing questions of either the business department or the executive director in a professional and respectful manner, holding each of us, as well as the business department and executive director, accountable to the cities that have entrusted us with our mission. This specifically lines up with our strategic goal, our strategic plan that we work to create, specifically Goal 7, to strengthen LOC's financial sustainability and solvency. There's nothing that will ruin our reputation with our cities faster than a financial discrepancy. If you choose me to be your treasurer, I absolutely understand the meeting commitment, including the board meetings, the executive committee meetings, the budget committee meetings, and the finance committee meetings. And I look forward to a time when we can all safely meet in person. I miss your smiling faces and the camaraderie that comes with our shared passion for doing good work for cities. However, one thing this pandemic has proven is that we are capable of meeting electronically, and I believe in being efficient with people's time. Therefore, I'd be a strong advocate of committees meeting electronically, other than the board of directors meetings. I think this is the #1 barrier that prevents more people outside the 1-hour radius of Salem from participating more in the League of Cities. But let's make no mistake, you aren't electing a treasurer. You are electing the person that best represents and reflects the 241 cities across our great state as your future president. As an organization, we need to be relevant. We need to work with our partners at AOC, OSBA, the local districts, and others to join together in our relevance and to work on our shared mission and challenges. For instance, the impending fiscal crisis that we share. If we don't find a solution to our property tax system, all our work here is done. Cities won't have resources or the confidence to continue to support us. I believe I have the relationship skills to unify us in that mission and to continue our progress in becoming a more diverse and inclusive organization. I vow to listen more and speak less. But when I do speak, I will speak with substance and the clear understanding of the issues that impact all the cities we represent. You'll rarely find me uninformed, late, or outworked. As your treasurer, not only will I do the things I mentioned before, but I will work every day to make sure President Mays and future President Browning have everything they need and my full support to have successful years as well. If that's what you're looking for in a treasurer and your future president, then I would ask for your vote this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor Drotzman. And we're going to roll into 2 questions for you. And you have about 1 minute to formulate your response. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that, Mayor Clark, but yeah, one minute for each question.
And all these special exceptions. What's going on here, Greg?
Well, she stayed within the 1 minute rule. So go ahead. Who do I have next from the nominating committee to ask a question?
Sure, Evans, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if we were to ask you as treasurer to prioritize the top 2 or 3 core functions that we need to do, preserve in the face of revenue over expense shortfalls, what do you think you would prioritize?
You know, I have to prioritize a mission focus. I have to look at, you know, our primary functions as a city or as a League of Oregon Cities organization to our constituent cities. A lot of our cities look to us for training. Training would have to be super important. They look to us for legal services, especially for some of our smaller cities that don't have attorneys. And so that has to be important. I do believe in a budget that was recently passed that helped to reduce the amicus and some of the other filings at a huge expense. we have to continue to be successful in our conferences and the monies that we allocate towards that. Today's a perfect example of the allocation of resources and the way that we can do so frugally. And so I think those are some 3 areas that we need to focus on, as well as maintaining a good quality staff. And, you know, we've got great staff on board, and I think allocation of resources towards them is important. So beyond that is making sure that our mission creep doesn't continue to increase, and that we continue to focus on our main goals and missions as outlined in the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Okay, our second question, Mayor Mays, you haven't had a chance to ask, or Councilor Nanke or Councilor Farmer. Which one of you want to go into this?
I'm okay with one question. That's okay.
This is Drew. I'll jump in with one. This is a little longer term in the scope, but where do you see the intersectionality being between the LOC's role and assisting cities in providing solutions to homelessness and housing?
Great question. You know, we've got to continue to advocate at the state level and working with our legislators to find some additional resources. Mental health has got to be a huge part of that. In that conversation, our mental health services across the state are in dire need of improvement. Trying to find addiction and drug and alcohol counseling resources for those individuals, as also as trying to find you know, more shelter opportunities and working with the legislature on language that allows for those and in the planning process. In Hermiston right now, we're going through that issue right now, and it's been a huge challenge. One that all of our communities are now challenged with. The other thing I would mention too, Drew, is our police force have been overwhelmed by mental health and homelessness challenge. It's up 20 to 30% here locally. And so we've got to continue to figure out how we manage the social aspects of policing and the homelessness, and making sure that we can help transition those people from homelessness to more productive citizens within our community. So yeah, I think that's a huge issue that as a state, we've got to continue to work on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mayor Drotzman, and good luck to you. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Let's move on to our next candidate. We have Mayor Steve Calloway from Hillsborough. Mayor Calloway, you've got 5 minutes. You're on the clock.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you to the nominating committee. You have a Herculean task, but the good news is you have great people to choose from, not just with our treasurer position, but also for the board. And thank you for giving each of us this time and this careful consideration. You know, this year is like none other. You know, we have our health pandemic and we have the economic fallout from that. We have natural disasters, floods that occurred, you know, in Northeast or Oregon, you know, in January, and then our urban fires, you know, that we had just recently, as well as wildfires and forest fires. You know, we have our housing challenges, both for inventory and affordability. We also have issues related to public safety, policing, and, you know, our new civil rights movement. And all of these issues play out in our cities. And this makes it a very exciting time to serve at the city level. And that's why I'm looking forward to my next 4 years. You know, because of term limits in Hillsborough, they are also my last 4 years that I'll be able to serve our community as mayor. But it's also why I'm applying to this treasurer position. You know, cities are the front lines for all of these issues. And the League of Oregon Cities Directors, the League of Oregon Cities Director plays an important role in supporting and leading this work. Now, all the applicants, you know, offer unique experiences, perspectives, and backgrounds. And mine includes serving as a public school principal here in Hillsborough. The majority of my years were at minority majority schools, which were recognized by the state as well as our district for achievement and success, with things from improving attendance and positive school culture to closing the achievement gap. As an elected official here in Hillsborough since 2010. I have, served in a variety of roles, and currently as mayor, it's an honor to serve, Oregon's most diverse large city. We have over 100,000 residents, and 40% are identified as Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And during the 4 years that I've been mayor so far, we have created our City of Hillsborough Equity Team. We have done little things like make sure our business cards are bilingual. And when somebody referred to Hillsborough with, what it was, more of a slur, I was able to speak up and speak out to defend my city and the people who live here. We have worked to strengthen our Hispanic businesses, and we are working with our chamber to create a Black Advisory Business Council. And we held Washington County's first city-sponsored Pride Festival a year ago this last June, and unfortunately, due to COVID, we were unable to host it again. And you can see that there's a strong theme in my personal and public life of being an ally and an advocate, and that's continued as OMA president and chair of our conference planning committee. I've worked to make sure that our mayors are presented with our unvarnished truth of our state's history and current states of affairs so that we could recognize the work that needs to be done. And as League of Oregon City Director, I've served on the Transportation Committee, advocated for the creation of our Color Caucus and support that. And I currently serve on the Equity Lens Subcommittee, as well as the Finance Committee. And so those are the experiences and the background that I will bring to this treasurer position, because I recognize that the solvency of our organization is critically important, because we can't do the work, we can't support if we aren't financially sound. And so that's my first priority moving forward. But then also we know that we can identify an organization's or a household's or a school's priorities based on how their money is allocated and based on their budgetary priorities. And so that's why I would work to make sure that our budget reflects the priorities of our cities as well as the priorities of our directors. I see that I'm just about out of time, so I'll just let you know that as a retired, I mentioned I'm retired, and that does give me the time to make all of the meetings and prepare for all of the meetings as well. And as has been mentioned, one of my strengths, one of my keys is the ability to listen, and that's what I will do for you as treasurer and also as I move up the chain. And with that, Chair Evans, I'll turn it back over to you with a few seconds to spare.
Thank you, Mayor Callaway. You hit it right on the mark. So we have 2 questions for you. The next up in the queue is, I don't know which one wants to go first, either Councilor Nanke or Mayor Mays. It's your shot.
This is Keith. Steve, thanks for that presentation. As treasurer and then vice president, president, what's been your experience? How do you, be able to understand the wants and needs and challenges around the state in the last 10 years of service?
So one of the things, Keith, is making sure that I get out and I talk and I listen. An example, I was visiting Hermiston. I'm trying to think, it was last year. It's pre-COVID, and because we share, similar economic priorities, and so being able to, and thank you very much to Mayor Drotzman for hosting me. Experience, the projects and see what they're doing with. With gain share, for instance, to see how they're using urban renewal districts so that I can understand both the needs of rural Oregon as well as identify the commonalities that we share. So, we've done great things in terms of hosting meetings around the state, and I would continue to see doing those. I think that while Zoom provides a great opportunity to connect, it's not the same thing as being on the ground in these communities. And that would be one of the things that I would hope that we would be able to continue as I've done in the past.
Brad, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In a somewhat similar vein regarding statewide issues, I know as I was rolling out of the chair position, I had a strong concern over Cascadia, which, really affects only a portion of our state. But a lot of us will flee to the other portion of our state as well. So how do you look at the issues that are involved, say, in the valley versus issues of significance in other parts of the state? Because we always hear about that urban rural component and how we address that, because we do represent all 241 cities in the state.
Thank you very much, and knock on wood, because I think Cascadia is about the only catastrophe that has not occurred during 2020. You know,
Yes.
one of the things that, you know, that even with this pandemic, we have seen that people are not fully and adequately prepared, hence the rush on toilet paper, for crying out loud. And I think it drives the point home that we really need to make sure that we are leading our communities, you know, to help create that some of this self-reliance and preparedness. But, you know, there is no divide when it comes to responding to this, you know, potential emergency. You know, we've seen that when, as we've seen the state really rally around, you know, Phoenix and Talent and Gates and Lyons and Estacada and other, no matter where we are in the state, those communities that have been impacted by the fires, we've seen a great response. But, you know, if and when Cascadia comes, we're going to be reliant from the valley on Central Oregon. That's where, you know, some of the landings will be for, you know, for supplies. And so, you know, there really is no divide when it comes to coming together during times of crisis and times of emergencies.
Excellent.
And congratulations on your leadership award.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor Callaway. And then we are going to get ready to move on to the applicants for the open board seats. And we're going to start off, and just to remind everybody, I don't think I said this earlier, Patty is keeping time for everybody. So at this point, for each of our applicants for the open board seats, you will have 3 minutes for your presentation, and then you will have you'll have two questions to respond to from members of the nominating committee. So let's kick it off with Councilor Beach Pace from Hillsborough. Counselor.
Good evening. Thank you. Thanks to the nominating committee for having me tonight. I appreciate it. Why I want to serve on the LOC board of directors is I want to continue my service at a higher level. And I started my service when I was in high school. In junior ROTC, I went on to West Point, United States Military Academy. I served the United States Army for 11 years afterwards. I have been leading social change or nonprofit organizations for the past 14 years. I volunteered at schools, parks for campaigns with Rotary in 2 cities. And I serve on the board of the Westside Queer Resource Center, which is an LGBTQ organization. And I've established relationships with counselors across the state and mayors across the state. And I love that work, and I want to take it to a higher level with the LOC board of directors. Basically, I want to have an impact, be part of an impact greater than my city and my region, but across the state. And that brings us to the role of an LOC director. I want to channel the power of our collective. I want to listen, learn, collaborate, and act. And from that, the act piece is providing resources, training, and advocacy for all cities across Oregon. Regarding involvement with the LOC, I was involved with the LOC before I was a counselor. In fact, when I was campaigning, through training and conferences, through the DC trips, which I love. And then also I serve on the EDI committee, which is amazing. I love that group. And I was a moderator for a panel that's actually going to air tomorrow, but it's pre-recorded. And I'm looking forward to facilitating the Q&A part of that. As far as commitment to 5 meetings, yes, I take commitments and oaths very seriously, starting with the oath I took to support and defend the Constitution of the United States when I joined the Army. Right now to this interview, I'm calling in from North Carolina. It's 10 o'clock or a little bit after 10 right now. I'm out here settling the estate of my aunt who passed away on Sunday. I am committed to this organization. And so instead of punting and saying, I'll try next year, I want to serve with LOC, and that's why I'm on this call. Finally, challenges. I thought about the challenges with COVID and the fires, and we keep talking about that in an unprecedented time. But really what is unprecedented is the centuries of inequity. And I think our problems come down to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, representation matters, and we need to eliminate or mitigate barriers to elected service. Unless that we have representation, or until we have representation, there will always be gaps in achievement, in education, in wealth, in opportunities, in housing, and disaster impact, which is the next thing that I think we should focus on, which is recovery from COVID, the fires. We have to make sure we have a good economy, build jobs. We have to worry about our tax base, as we all do, our water rates, and these are just to name a few. I would like to, I would be honored
I think
chosen to serve on the board. Thank you.
Okay. Next in the queue for questions, Councilor Hall or Commissioner Fritz, do you have a question for Councilor Pace?
No.
No?
No, thanks. That was a very, very impressive presentation. Thank you.
And just a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Brad.
We talked about 2 questions for the treasurer position and maybe 1 question for the other 3 open board seats. Did we make a determination on how we want to actually go through that?
No, we really didn't. But
Okay.
if we want to stick with 1, we can do that. It's up to members of the nominating committee. How do we want to proceed on that?
Sure. And I know these applications tend to be short and sweet, but from their presentation, I think we get a lot of better insight into each individual, and we may not have any questions. So,
All right. Well,
that up as an option, as well as 1 or 2, depending on how we see the presentation from someone and if something spurs our interest.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of vague, but
yeah. Well, there'll be folks who don't, from the committee who may not have any questions, just based on the thoroughness of the presentation. So,
right.
I would rather keep us at 2, and just kind of, be fair to everybody.
So can I make a comment that rather than take it in turns to ask us if we want a question, just throw it open to the committee, and the first one that answers it, that has a burning question. If nobody does, then we just move on.
Okay. So yeah, we can do that. I just was going to do that, but I just in the rotation I have you, CM, and Amanda next with priority, and anybody else who wants to ask a question and replace them, they can do that. Okay. Does anybody else on the nominating committee have a question for Councilor Pace? Okay.
I'll ask if no one else has a question, I'll ask a question, but I want to give other folks an opportunity.
Okay. Well, go ahead, CM.
Councilor Pace.
Councilor Hall, go ahead.
Yes, Councilor Pace. Can you talk a little bit about actions in your community that you've done? You mentioned equity work, and I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about work that you've accomplished on the local level that you think could translate to something that the League of Oregon Cities Board could take on.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Hall. I mentioned some of the work with Rotary schools, parks, campaigns, LGBTQ as well, but I think what's coming to a head for me recently is my wife. My wife is, it sounds like I'm volunteering for my wife. We've been together for 18 years, and she is a 22-year veteran of law enforcement. She's a police lieutenant. And so to have that perspective as well as, as we're going through this time, as things are coming to a head, and seeing both sides of that, hearing both sides of that. On council, we had some great listening sessions, inviting the community to come and tell us about their experiences with the police department and what they would like to see with the police department. And to hear that side, but then to also know the side through my wife has been fascinating. And it's another aspect that I could bring to the LOC Board of Directors, not only my military background, but my affiliation with police, but then also hearing from the community and their concerns as well. So in many ways in my life, I'm on the fence. I'm stepping in both worlds, or many worlds, depending on my experience as a veteran, as a lesbian, married to a cop, etc.
Thank you, Councilor Pace. Also, on behalf of the nominating committee and the rest of the folks present here, I'd like to offer our condolences to you on your loss. You know, and hopefully things will work out with your trip back to North Carolina.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to getting back to Oregon.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's go with the next applicant. And I have, take my glasses off. Councilor Andrew Struthers from Corvallis. You have 3 minutes. Councilor, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. I see you in my corner there.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Evans and the nominating committee for having me tonight. To a little bit about myself, so I'm a city councilor for the city of Corvallis. I'm also an IT consultant for Oregon State University within the recreational department. Why I want to be on the LOC board of directors is I have a big interest in public service and being a public servant, and wanting to serve not just my city, but also the region. Excuse me. I have built relationships or have relationships with other city councilors, primarily in the city of Monroe and the city of Albany, from past experiences that I've had with those individuals. And I've had other leadership roles that I have served. I've served as the student body president for Oregon State when I was a college student, and within that role served on the board of directors for the Oregon Student Association, which has a similar role to what the League of Oregon Cities has as in representing all the universities of Oregon, both at the state legislature and then providing resources to those universities. And so what I see for the role as the League of Oregon City board member is really being that conduit, not only for individual cities, but also for the region and then for the state as a whole, to ensure that everybody is having the resources, the training, and the advocacy being provided to them, advocacy being at the state legislature. Yes, I can attend 5 board meetings. I have a great supervisor who's very flexible with my work schedule, and he's well aware of what I'm doing here tonight and being with you all. I would say that with my job, as flexible as it's made it actually a lot easier being a city councilor and being able to represent my city as having a full-time job. Some of the important challenges that I see facing LOC today, and not just LOC, but the member cities across, as has been talked about multiple times today, is the social justice, the diversity, equity, inclusion. Here in Corvallis, we've had some very in-depth discussions, especially last summer during our budgeting season, or just before the summer, excuse me. And actually one of my fellow counselors is on here tonight as an applicant as well. And we actually had some discussions with our local NAACP and found a way to work within our city budget to allocate $100,000 for the creation of a hate bias incident program and position. And this was sort of in response to the Senate bill that was passed in 2019 with the hate bias reporting program through the Department of Justice. And what really came across for me in those discussions was that reporting system is great for the purposes of reporting, but one of the key things that need to do, I just want to finish real quick, is providing the services and resources locally.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the nominating committee? Whoever wants to step up next. I don't see any at this point. Thank you, Councilor Struthers, for your presentation. And now we'll move on to the next applicant for the board position. So Councilor Anthony Martin from the city of Hillsborough. Anthony?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful to be here. First off, I am interested in being on the board of directors for the League of Oregon Cities because I am passionate about Oregon. I'm passionate about local government. I'm passionate about making sure that cities big and small have the tools to meet their residents' needs. I really value the League as a resource for advocacy, for education, and for spreading best practices for how cities can improve. And I want to improve the way that LOC accomplishes that goal. I believe that I can contribute some technical expertise and experience. I have a master's degree in public affairs where I emphasized local government. I worked for 4 and change years as a consultant in cities across Oregon, some of which are on the nominating committee. I currently work as a public sector financial analyst. And in Hillsborough, I'm the Transportation Committee Chair. I was on the Hillsborough Sustainability Task Force, and I'm an alternate for Metro Policy Advisory Committee. In addition to that, I'm 31 years old with a young child, so I believe I can bring an additional perspective to the city or to the committee, making sure that we add the voices of younger elected officials. I see our role as board members as taking a larger place in advocacy at the local, regional, state, and federal levels. I believe that we need to proactively help cities, large and small, find innovative solutions, and I want to help engage all communities to meet their needs. Some of my involvement with the League, I've been on a couple policy committees. I was on this year's conference planning committee. I have attended LOC conferences even before I was elected, and I've taken a couple trips to DC, which are fantastic. I will wholeheartedly commit to every meeting for the board. And in terms of the challenges facing the League, I really think they're the ones that are facing Oregon cities. You know, if we're going to talk about the ones that aren't immediate, things like housing, transportation, dwindling resources, coupled with greater demands, PERS requirements. But I really want to focus on 3. The first one is COVID-19 and emergency response. I think cities have been devastated, and this is not a short-term problem. I think we need to create that greater voice at the local, at the state level, really solidify our relationship with state government. I think we need to expand those weekly calls. Those have been fantastic. The next one is equity and inclusion. I want to help bring more voices into the LOC organization. I'm really glad to hear that the People of Color Caucus was approved. I think that we need to reach out to newly elected officials personally to let them know that they can get involved and that they have the ability to change and impact our organization. Also, I would love to disseminate National League of Cities work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and hopefully start a mentor and mentee program. So there's 2-way mentoring for every elected official if they want it. The final thing would be training, focusing on our regional trainings, giving everyone a chance to have online trainings and using the expertise that we have. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. Brad, I see your hand is up.
Yes.
For a question, and go for it.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councilor Martin, especially for the trips to DC. Even as I was a young counselor and before I got on there, were fascinating and so educational. But my question revolves around the applications. Again, we didn't ask for a ton of information. It just says, when does your term end and are you running again? And your term ends at the end of this year. You're running again. Do you have opposition? And I would suggest that future applicants actually state that as well. Are you in an opposed race?
Yeah, I apologize for not having put that down. I am running unopposed. I am running this year, so I am effectively re-elected to another 4-year term. As Mayor Callaway noted of my great city of Hillsborough, we are term limited at 2 terms, so this would be my last term.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a second question from the nominating committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next candidate. And just for people to know who's coming up next, we have Mayor Arlene Burns from Mosier, and after Mayor Burns, we have Councilor Ashley Hicks from Roseburg. Okay, so Mayor, are you here?
Councilor Evans, this is Patty at the LOC. We're not seeing her on the list of participants. If she's here, I'd ask her to identify herself, but we're not seeing her show up on the list of participants.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, just a quick question from what our council Patty had sent out earlier. We were going to throw everybody's names into a hat, and it looks like we're actually going in order alphabetically. Or did we shift how we're bringing?
No, we didn't do an alphabetical by last name. I think Patty, how did you come to the rotation here?
So what's in your packet is in alphabetical order. I have scrambled them up through an app. I had assumed that I would call the names, which I don't have to do, but I have a randomization list I can use if you prefer I call the names.
Whichever. I just, again, we kind of went off, and Beach Pace was already in, but several of them are being listed in order that they're in our table of contents for our manuals as well. So,
Chair Evans, I would suggest that we just continue in the order in the packet so that it's easier to follow along with the submitted materials.
I just add that I think that she may not have been on because she thought we were going to call her at the random time, and that's what it was kind of stated as.
Yeah.
Right, and going through the packet is not fair to those, because since everybody's in the meeting, it's not fair to those who are able to listen to everybody else's responses and the questions they get. So it has to be randomed.
If I may, for ease of reference, if we do it random, the cheat sheet that I have created myself allows me to identify which tab those committee members should flip to. You have hard copies that I sent to you. And I've also identified which page number in the electronic packet for those attendees who are following along with the electronic packet. And I'm happy to do that if that's the will and desire of the committee.
Yeah, the way I see the alphabetization is alphabetized by first name. Is that correct, Patty? Not last. I don't see that with last names.
No, I put them alphabetically in the packet, but my understanding was that I was to randomize it and we weren't going to call them in order of the packet, and that when I called people's names, I would need to specifically tell the committee which tab to flip to.
Okay.
Yes.
Why don't we go to that? And then I don't see Mayor Burns here. Patty, do you want to just go ahead and call the next applicant and the next one on deck after that?
Yes, absolutely. So the next person to speak immediately, and I apologize if I pronounce the name wrong, it's not intentional, Timothy Ripp. If I said that, counselor from Forest Grove, and on deck would be Ashley Hicks, counselor from Roseburg. For those of you that are committee members, Counselor Ripp's application materials are under tab 30. And for those of you that are following along in the electronic packet, it's on page 42. And as a note, I will be keeping time, so if you can see me, I will note 2 seconds, 1 second. This will be you have 30 seconds, and then I'll count down with my fingers from 10 to 1.
Okay. All right. So.
You've been very impressive, Patty, by the way, with your countdowns.
All right.
Most impressed.
All right. Councilor Rippey, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the efforts that everybody's making to try and get this this done. And Patty, I can't see you, so I've got my own clock here, but might have to speak up if I run out of time. So in terms of the reasons why I'm interested in serving on the board, it's really twofold. Motivated by two experiences that stand out in my life. The first, of course, is the last 4 years I've served on City Council. It's very apparent to me that in order to serve the residents of Forest Grove, a councilor needs to advocate for its city, both in the region, in the state, nationally, at all levels. And advocacy in the state and nationally is best served by being in the League of Oregon Cities and providing and being on the board is one way of doing that in a very active way within the state. The other experience that motivates me and informs my perspectives is like Councilor Page, I graduated from the Military Academy at West Point and then served over 22 years on active service in the Army. And that experience had me move all over the country. I've lived basically I've lived in New York, Virginia, North Carolina, Oklahoma, California, Oregon, Kansas, Iowa, and then 2 tours in Germany. So those experiences have informed my perspectives, and some of those perspectives include living in communities where English is not the dominant language, obviously. Germany is, and I lived on the economy there, so I'm having to set up utilities, pay rent, do all those things in a different language. And I understand the challenges that many of our residents in Oregon face when they're trying to do this at the city and the local level. It is challenging, it can be frustrating, and I've lived in communities where the military is not welcome. So that's a different perspective. Not many people have had that kind of experience, so it is difficult. Those perspectives inform my service. So what is the role of a person on the board? I think you have to be open-minded. To listen to all the voices. You need to think strategically. This organization needs to think out, be future focused on their planning and their ideas, but also be engaged in the actions of today. So that those actions include being engaged in education, service, and legislative work. In terms of what I've done for the League of Oregon Cities, I served on annual conference.
Sir, I have you at time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Sorry, sir.
All right.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the committee for Council Rippey? I'm not seeing any hands.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you for your service.
Yes. Thank you, Counselor. My son is active duty right now. So we have no questions. Let's go on to our next applicant. Patty?
Yes, so the next applicant is Ashley Hicks. On deck will be Councilor Roy Barron. Ashley, for those of you that are following, Ashley's packet information is under tab 9 for committee members. For those of you following along on the electronic packet, it's page 16. Councilor Hicks, are you here?
Yeah, I am, Patty. Thank you.
Oh, okay. The floor is yours, Councilor.
Go ahead, Counselor. You can start.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Evans. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is my first time applying for this position. This is my first term serving as city councilor, which will end at the end of this year. I am running again. I have another lady that is running against me. I am Roseburg native, born and raised here. I've lived here my whole life. I raised my daughter here. She's just turned 21. I operate a business here, and that's construction. So I've been doing that for almost 20 years. I also used to own a little coffee shop downtown on Jackson Street. And I'm really proud about that business, and sold that after owning that for 3 years. My focus is really on river cleanup, which before 2012, before I started river cleanup, I knew nothing about local government. I knew nothing about local officials. I don't remember civics being taught in school. So, it's embarrassing to admit that, but river cleanup and addressing issues related to homeless encampments along the riverbanks was really, you know, my into looking at how city council works, and that's what brought me in front of the podium speaking to city council about river cleanup and about the impacts to the river. So I have other interests in regards to housing, interest in regards to public transportation. How I see the role as a league member is basically being available to city councilors, to other public officials when there's questions or when you're looking for information. I've always had that with the league. There's always been somebody to answer my phone calls or to call me back or to help me figure out what the information I'm looking for, which I've always appreciated. And I see that as the role. I have served on other community groups. I've served, I'm on the Urban Renewal Committee with the City Council position. I've served on the City Budget Committee for multiple years. I held a brief stint at a chair position for the Historic Resource Review Commission. I've served as a treasurer for the Downtown Roseburg Association many years ago. I just try to get involved however I can, and I guess that's, watching the interviews tonight, I just feel like I'm completely out of my league. There's so many great applicants and so many great information that's been shared.
You're at time, Counselor.
Okay, and yes, I can make the meetings and be available. And
okay, right. Do we have any questions from the committee? I see none. Thank you, Counselor. And we'll move on to the next candidate. Patty?
Thank you. First, apologies, Councilor Roy Barone. I'm sorry, I said your name wrong the first time. Councilor Jamie Hafner corrected me. Roy Barone is next. He's a councilor from Hermiston. For committee members, that's tab 23 in your paper packets. If you're following along in the electronic version, it starts on page 23. Next on deck after Councilor Barone will be McKenna McDonald from Pendleton. Councilor Barone.
Hey, good evening. How's everyone doing? Well, before I get going, want to acknowledge this is a great interview process. I'm really happy to see a lot of familiar faces, see familiar names, and all of this has been due to the League of Oregon Cities conferences and the networking that has taken place. Like Patty just said, my name is Roy Barone. I'm a city councilor here in Hermiston, Oregon. I'm a first-generation American. I'm a counselor. I'm an educator. I'm a coach, and I'm an advocate here. The reason why I'm interested in the League of Oregon Cities is really just to serve at a higher level of government. I want to be able to serve my city. I want to be able to serve my people and my community. I've had a long desire to represent, whether that's at the city council level, at the state level, and hopefully more like leading on into the future. In terms of what do I see my role in the League of Oregon Cities, I see myself having a lot of insight on Eastern Oregon related issues, as well as BIPOC issues. And I feel like I can bring a good insight, if not a fresher, newer perspective on a lot of issues that we face today, especially what the League of Oregon Cities is going to tackle here in the near future. What is my involvement with the League of Oregon Cities thus far? I'm in my first official term as counselor. This is my second year, though I was appointed right before I was actually elected. I see my involvement so far has been working with the League in order to establish the People of Color Caucus. I'm happy to announce, and like many of you that have been participating know, that the League has accepted and it's moving forward with the People of Color Caucus, which is something I'm really proud to have worked with Councilor Roland Herrera from Kaiser. The other thing is, like Councilor Pace said not too long ago, I was actually also a participant in how to engage diverse leaders in communities. And so that is actually a presentation if you want to come, 9 o'clock tomorrow. Feel free to drop in. In terms of can I make the meetings, of course, that's kind of why I signed up in the first place. I wouldn't sign up for a commitment that I couldn't keep. And lastly, what do I see as the most important challenge to LOC? unfortunately, we're in a time where there is a lot of challenges. And obviously, I think the first and foremost one is COVID recovery. Just today, I was actually in my first meeting with the Eastern Oregon Regional Equity and Recovery Council for specifically Eastern Oregon and how we're going to recover from this COVID crisis. And so I believe COVID recovery is important, as well as mental health services. I've seen that that's been something the league has prioritized over the last few years, and I want to continue pushing that priority out as well. So that's a little bit of the summation of me. I'll turn over the extra time to any questions that there are. Thank you.
You're at time. Questions from the committee for Councilor Barone? I'm not seeing anybody jump up here. Going once, going twice, gone. So thank you, Counselor. And Patty, who's up next?
Thank you. Appreciate your
So
time.
we have Councilor McKinnon McDonald from Pendleton. For committee members, that's tab 20 in your paper packet. For those following along with the electronic version, it's page 29. Next on deck after McKinnon will be Dan Kohler, a counselor from Kaiser. So Counselor McDonald, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Patty. Good evening, everyone. Can you guys all hear me? Okay, perfect. It's funny that Patty kind of stumbled with my name. I actually have 3 last names as my name, so it's a pretty interesting one. But thank you very much for this evening and the time to talk with you all. I'm actually coming off of a day of Zoom meetings. Like Roy, I actually serve as a counselor in the evening and a special education teacher in rural Oregon the rest of the time. So this has been a very interesting time for a school year for all of us, and on top of everything that's happening at the city level. First off, just a little bit of background about me. Because starting out as a first-year teacher and a newly married person wasn't enough, I decided to run for council when I was 23. I was elected to the Pendleton City Council, and I'm now in my 6th year. The last 2 years, I've served as the council president, and I like to joke that I'm the youngest member, but also the most senior member of the council now. Over the last 4 years, we've had a huge turnover, which I think has been good for our community. And we've found a group of people that can work really well together. I was really interested in serving on the LOC board because I've seen the role that it can play in our communities when we have members from Eastern Oregon on the board. This past year, Paul Chalmers has served on the board, and he sits next to me at the meetings, and he's provided great insight from the LOC to our community, and he's helped build community connections across the state. Mayor Hauk also had a wonderful time on the board, and when I first started the council, it was one of the most important things that he told me if I could only go to one thing that year, that I needed to go to the LOC conference. And it was a really important thing for me to attend as a newly elected official, and I've tried to attend all the years that I can in the role that I have right now. What do I see my role as a board member? I believe that, like as a city councilor, my role is to serve the community that I represent, but also to try and work together and build partnerships with others to tackle the issues that we have. We're not in this, alone. We're in it together, and I think that we can really learn from other communities. And a couple councilors and the mayor from Hermiston, we had the opportunity this last fall to work together and to be able to just kind of start some conversations, which I really hope we'll start to do more of.
Counselor, you're at time.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Counselor McDonald from the committee?
I think Counselor Nanke, is that right? Had mentioned the piece about terms. So can you talk a little bit about, you said you're the most senior, and are term limited? Did I hear that, or did I miss that?
So we actually don't have term limits. We had someone in Pendleton who just finished like 40 years when he passed away a couple of years ago. So I'm actually in my 2nd term right now. I have the rest of this year, and I have 2 years left. At that point, I will decide if I want to run again. I have the opportunity to do so if I'd like to. Thanks.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Counselor. And Patty, let's move on. Who's next?
So next is Counselor Dan Kohler from the City of Kaiser. For committee members, that's tab 12 in your binders. For those following along with the electronic packet, that's page 19. Next on deck will be Kelly Johnson, a counselor from Central Point. So Counselor Kohler, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Why am I interested in doing this? That's a pretty dang good question. I remember when Kathy Clark asked me why, she came to me and she says, I need you to run for city council. And I looked at her and I said, why would I want to do that? I got enough people that hate me already. But that's kind of the way I look at this. There'll be somebody that won't like me, and that's okay. I'm interested in doing this because I have been truly blessed during my lifetime with a lot of talents, abilities, experiences professionally. I've worked as a funeral director and embalmer since 1979. This work has allowed me to work with and understand lots of people of all different kinds of religious, races, and sexual orientations. I've been placed in positions that I really didn't know what to do, but I know that my desire to serve is mainly based on my foundation involvement and over 50 years of scouting. I want to do my best to do my duty to God and my country. My country includes my community and my state, and I have a desire to give back and to make my community and state a better place for all residents. I've been involved in many projects, including things for the community and the region, bringing hundreds of volunteers together to make a difference. I enjoy working with Kathy Clark. She's an amazing mayor, and part of my desire to do this is to follow in her footsteps in service. My role as a board member, I would see to be to add a non-political view as a lifelong citizen of Oregon, to be able to listen and then act using common sense. My involvement in the LOC has been limited, as I've only been an elected official for just under 2 years. I have enjoyed the LOC conferences I've attended, and I really enjoyed the legislative visits at the Capitol. I enjoyed helping legislatures understand our point of view so we can make things better for everybody. I work for myself, so making the meetings would be a matter of just scheduling, which is not too bad, pretty easy to do. The things that I feel most important for the LOC and the cities in Oregon, our region is heavily affected by fires, as is Southern Oregon and to the coast. Fires, emergency response things is very important, and I think something we need to look at for long-term sustainability on that. COVID-19, helping all people get along and to do what's right. And we have a homeless problem in Oregon. And I think we just need to stay positive and test negative. So I've been able to attend a lot of the LOC weekly telephone meetings, and that's been a great blessing. So I grew up in Pendleton, LeGrand, and so I enjoy the people from Eastern Oregon. Love that. Thank you.
Okay, you're right. You're right on time, Counselor. Okay, any questions from the committee for Counselor Kohler?
I'd just like to say, go Mountaineers.
All right. Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing any? Patty, who's up next?
So up next is Kelly Johnson, counselor from Central Point. For committee members, that's tab 19 in your binders. For those following along in the electronic packet, that's page 28. On deck, after Counselor Johnson, it's Steve Wright, a counselor from Seaside. Counselor Johnson, the floor is yours. And I'm just been advised that we're not showing her on. Counselor Johnson, or by any chance, have you called in? I'm assuming that was okay. I don't think that was her. It doesn't appear as if Counselor Johnson is here. So if it's okay with you, Counselor Evans, I would suggest moving on to Counselor Steve Wright from Seaside.
I'm good with that. Let's go with Counselor Wright.
Okay, thank you. I'm applying for a position on the LOC Board of Directors because I believe it's important for the board to have a representative from the North Coast or the Northwest part of Oregon. I think I have a somewhat unique perspective since I retired to Seaside 8 years ago after 35 years in international trade, with 15 of that being as CFO. Since living here, I've recognized how vital the tourism business is to the coastal cities. Seaside's transformed itself from being busy in the summer only to being dormant in the winter to being all year round, vibrant and active. Been a city councilor now for 3.5 years, and during that time I've participated in the annual conferences, nearly all of the LOC regional small city meetings, and I've taken a lot of the training that LOC's offered. Been a member of 2 of the policy committees, Community Development, Tax and Finance, for 2 terms, so that's up to 8 meetings per year in Salem, although we didn't do that this year. So it's pretty easy to commit to 5 board meetings. I've been on nearly all 35 weeks of the COVID call. I'm also involved in regional economic development, transportation, and tourism boards. As a LOC board member, I'd expect to bring a perspective of my region, first by getting to know everybody else on the board and then learning how to work with my colleagues to decide on policy direction that would benefit all of the entire membership of our cities. I look at myself as a servant leader, trying to lead by example, for instance, here in Seaside, along with about the 100 or so other volunteers that help our little city be able to work. Bring that attitude to the board as well with issues like emergency preparedness. That includes a tsunami for some of us. Housing, homelessness, and transportation are top priorities, particularly for our area. I believe the LOC board must continue to increase our ability to influence the state government, working to keep home rule and eliminating those unfunded mandates. That should be topmost on our agenda. This past 7 months, trying to get state leadership to recognize the struggle of our small rural cities and businesses have really brought that out. Just contrast the slow state response with that of cities like Seaside and many others that prove their ability to react quickly and provide their own programs to help their residents and their businesses cope with the crisis. I believe that LOC and its work is critical to the health and ongoing of our cities. Just some other get to know me facts. I read at least 100 books a year. I walk about 100 miles a month around town. I'm barely competent in guitar and ukulele. I'm a motorman conductor on the Astoria Riverfront Trolley, and I'm president of the Seaside Museum. You can tell by that.
Counselor, that's time.
Okay.
Do we have any questions for Counselor Wright from the committee? Anybody? Okay. I don't see any right now. Quick time check. I had promised a break around 7:30, but we're running a little bit behind. So I'd like to give everybody a break now for 5 minutes. It's 7:55. Let's come back at 8 o'clock on the dot. Okay? Let's go do the bio thing. All right. We'll see you in 5. Okay, folks, it's 8 p.m. Let's get started again. Patty, who is up next?
Thank you, Councilor Evans. Up next is Daniel Wynn, Councilor from Lake Oswego. Councilor, did I say that last name right? He may not be back yet. It's just now 8 o'clock.
Okay. Who's there?
Councilor, here we go. I think he just joined. Councilor Wynn from Lake Oswego.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, did I get that name right? Your last name correct?
Yes, pronounced win, yes.
Okay, perfect. So can you hang on 1 second, Councilor Evans? We'd just like to check to make sure we have a quorum of the nominating committee who's returned first. If you can give me 30 seconds to check that, that'd be great.
Go for it.
And actually, it might be faster if I just call everybody.
Let's do a roll call.
Sure. Councilor Greg Evans.
Here.
Councilor Brad Nanke.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Keith Mays.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Amanda Fritz.
Here.
Thank you. City Manager Scott Derrickson.
Here.
Thank you. Councilor Drew Farmer.
Here.
Thank you. And Councilor CM Hall.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and so next up is Councilor Daniel Wynn from Lake Oswego, and on deck after him is Councilor Roland Herrera from Kaiser. Councilor Wynn.
Good evening, Chair Evans and members of the nominating committee. I want to thank you for taking time this evening for this very important work. Again, I'm Daniel Wynn from the city of Lake Oswego. Why am I interested? Well, last month I was part of a group of healthcare and legal aid organizations that organized a trip to Medford to help the especially vulnerable Latinx victims of the Rogue Valley wildfires. And I went as a board member of Immigration Counseling Service, as a minority small business owner, and as an elected local leader. You know, that experience of being on the front lines, witnessing that devastation and leveraging our resources to help our neighbors in need, it really drove home why I do what I do. I want to serve on the LOC Board of Directors because I believe I can help be a bridge builder. I'll bring a unique perspective from my lived experience as a person of color, growing up in a family where we speak two of the most widely spoken languages here in Oregon. And in my day job, I own a small business that has employed an extremely diverse workforce of over 100 employees spread out across the Portland Tri-County region and Seattle. And those experiences have given me a unique lens as I consider policy decisions that benefit not only my own city, but those across our state of Oregon. What do I see as the role of a LOC board member? Well, in addition to our elected roles as councilors and mayors, I believe our role as board members is to advocate for our communities across the state. We need to be on the front lines of not only our cities and towns, but we need to make sure our voices are heard in the halls of the Salem Capitol and heard by our leaders in DC representing Oregon interests and priorities. My involvement with LOC, well, my very first involvement with LOC was through the newly elected official boot camp, also known as How Not to Get Impeached training, along with attending the annual conference at the Salem Convention Center, where I met many of you on this Zoom call. More recently, I testified before the board in February this year, advocating with Councilor Herrera for the formation of the Oregon Local Government People of Color Caucus. Can I commit? Absolutely. I'm the CEO of my own company and I have support staff to assist me with that. The most important challenges facing LOC today, I would say the most important challenge is recovery from the pandemic. This pandemic has affected every person living in our cities and our towns across the state. And as a restaurant owner, like many other small businesses, I've had to make some very difficult decisions. Our children and their parents have had to make difficult sacrifices. Our workers are struggling to make ends meet. Our communities look to us as local leaders to fight for us and help us all rebuild. I thank you for your thoughtful consideration and hope to be able to serve alongside you all on the board.
Thank you, Counselor. Do we have any questions from the committee for Counselor Wynn? I'm not seeing any at this time. Okay, so Patty, go ahead.
Thank you. So next up is Councillor Roland Herrera from Kaiser. And then following him next on deck will be Mayor Arlene Burns from Mosier. So Councillor Roland Herrera is up. For the committee members, that's tab 21 in your binder. For those following in the electronic packet, it's page 32. Councillor Herrera. He's not on. I'm being advised by staff that Councillor Herrera is not on. Mayor Burns, are you prepared to go? And I'm being told she's here. Oh.
Okay.
Mayor Burns, I think you're muted.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Okay. And before you begin, just for the committee, sorry, I gotta find this. Mayor Burns is under tab 8 in your binders, and for those following in the electronic packet, it's on page 15. After Mayor Burns, I will call Councillor Sal Parada of McMinnville. Mayor Burns, the floor is yours.
Okay, excuse me, I just came in very late to this meeting. I've been at another engagement. So I'm thrilled and interested, and also right now I'm in the middle of campaigning, so I'm incredibly preoccupied with a whole bunch of different things. So, but I'm also on the ballot for mayor of Mosier again. I've been on my 3rd term now, almost finished with my 3rd term here in Mosier, and I was city council 2 years before that. So one of the areas that I actually was working with Mike Cully with was with the Oregon EV Collaborative, which was trying to find a statewide solution for bringing the electrification for electric cars in the state. So that's one perspective that I've kind of gotten involved in on more of a regional and statewide level. And then in Mosier, we've had lots of near misses with fires and floods and fires and more fires. So I feel like our perspective as a little town and then dealing with various state agencies and trying to find solutions with very limited staff here in Mosier is probably something that might be somewhat useful here and there. So do you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions for the mayor? Committee members?
Arlene, you're running for your next term. Is there any opposition for your mayoral seat?
No, there is not. And we have so many things going right now. We've got a lot of irons in the fire that even though I'm running for state representative too, I feel really loyal to the city to try to finish these projects, at least get them through. So, and I can actually hold the position of mayor and state representative simultaneously, because here in Mosier, there's no compensation financially for the mayor post.
Awesome.
Councillor Evans, I had my hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor Burns. It's really appreciate you making time to come. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did after the big oil train fire in Mosier?
Sure. Well, one of the first things that we did that I think was important was we made a stand with the railroad that we wanted them to clean up at least the mess along the tracks before they resumed traffic. And they didn't do this, but that gave us this kind of line in the sand that enabled our senators and governor to get behind us. And then with the railroad themselves and the community, we formed an IGA with the school and the fire district so we could negotiate non-litigiously with the railroad. And this was about a 1.5 year negotiation. And we had lawyers to dot the I's and cross the T's, but it was one based on us telling our story and where we were and how they could make it right in sort of a more of a partnership way. So to that end, we ended up getting a piece of land that the city had been leasing for 30 years and wanting to buy. And we've got a design for a net zero fire hall, city hall, and community center that part of the money from the railroad is paying, and we got some state money, and so it will really transform our town. So, and then I got really involved in speaking up for oil train safety legislation in Salem, and also actually in California. And I got involved with climate mayors on a national level, and with the Safe Energy Leadership Alliance that's chaired by Dow Constantine up in King County, that's dealing specifically with communities along the tracks. So yeah, that ended up kind of prompting my my mayor job to being somewhat full-time in that capacity.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your work on those things.
And do we have any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Okay, so just a point of order here. If you have your camera off, I can't see you raise your hand, although I am going back and forth between the electronic hand and the physical hand. So if you don't raise it electronically, just wave at me, physically, and then we'll go from there. Patty, who's next?
So I think I'm going to get it right this time. Councilor Saul Peralta. I hope I got that right this time, Councilor. He's a councilor from McMinnville. That's tab 25 in your binder for committee members, page 37 of the electronic copy. Next up will be Council President John Goodhouse of Tigard. So Councilor Peralta of McMinnville, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Patty. And yes, you did get my name right. I appreciate that. I guess I just want to start by saying that I'm just really grateful to have a chance to hear all the stories of the candidates who are participating tonight. I'm just so impressed by the talent, and I really especially enjoyed hearing Arlene's talk just a moment ago. I'm a second-term city councilor from McMinnville. I'm the vice chair of the Mid-Valley Council of Governments. I've served on various local boards over the years in my community. Professionally, I'm a public policy and communications consultant, and I'm also the co-founder and secretary of the Independent Party of Oregon. I'm seeking this position because I believe that our state and our cities are experiencing a crisis in a large number of areas: mental health services, housing affordability, homelessness, policing, fire and EMS costs. The list goes on. And many of those things are completely outside of our control. And that's one of the reasons that I'm seeking this position. I believe that the main role of the LOC board, in addition to helping set the direction for the organization, is to provide state and local policy leadership for cities across the state. I've worked on a lot of policy and legislative campaigns that are of interest to LOC. I've helped encourage partner organizations like the COG to increase their lobbying presence on behalf of the shared policy concerns of cities and other government units. In the current legislative session, I led lobbying efforts that were unsuccessful on legislation to give cities more flexibility to spend transient lodging tax dollars on affordable housing. I worked to expand the categories of housing that inclusionary zoning applies to on a pilot basis for our city. I worked in the special session with Representative Noble to reform the arbitration process related to policing and to ensure that officers are held accountable for excessive use of force. My role with the COG has given me some insight into how state laws can restrict the ability of cities to make staffing decisions in planning and other areas. Professionally, I've been the outreach coordinator for PERS Solutions for Public Services a few years ago, which was a semi-successful, I guess, effort to reform the state's PERS system to increase cost sharing. And in that role, I had contact with council members in nearly every city in the state. In my role, I see the role of the LOC board members I mentioned as an activist member, especially working to advocate for economic development, affordable housing, and other policies that I mentioned germane to cities. I think the biggest pressures facing LOC and cities in general today relate to the polarization that we're experiencing as a country. I think that's really weighing heavily on the social fabric. The economic conditions that our citizens have been dealing with that have been exacerbated so significantly by COVID and the regional fires that we've had. And then the second major pressure that we're facing, relates to legislative policies and economic pressures that we're facing related to healthcare costs, PERS, et cetera. and as well as a lack of sufficient housing and the downward pressure that that also puts on our budgets. All of these contributing to regional homelessness and problems that we have as cities with revenue. I think that we need someone who can help move these conversations forward for cities, and I think I'm in a good position to help with that, and I'd appreciate the opportunity to do so.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Councilor Peralta? Anybody on the committee? Okay. Seeing none. And thank you, Councilor. And Patty, who's next?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Council President John Goodhouse of Tigard. For committee members, that's tab 18 in your packet. For those in the electronic copy, it starts on page 26. Next up after will be Mayor Ron Lundbaum of John Day. I hope I said that right. But for now, it's Council President John Goodhouse.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, John Goodhouse, Council President, Tigard, Oregon. Tigard's a growing city that's recently become a major player in the region and the state while being a small city, yet Tigard hasn't had a seat on the LOC board. And this is one of the reasons I'm running. Being selected to Tigard City Council, I've been active in all aspects of LOC, attending all conferences and lobbying on behalf of the LOC during the National League of Cities Capitol Hill Day in DC. I'm interested in being on the LOC board to help advance LOC's agenda by being a board member of NLC and work with NLC staff and committees. To additionally lead as an LOC board member with our city's best interests in mind and put aside political agendas and differences. While many board members are from the Portland metro area, I bring a small town perspective, which is important. As a white male in my 40s, I see it as a priority to support equity and inclusion while helping craft the message to members of LOC and citizens of Oregon. My belief is you can't solve a problem till you understand what the problem is and why it happened. My goal as a board member is to assist in creating the education and understanding of the problem to then solve the systematic racism in Oregon cities. I work closely with the LOC and Mike Coley to advance the league's priorities. I've been on and participated in all the league weekly calls with the governor and other organizations. I've worked with the LOC, NLC, and elected officials on grants, legislation, funding, and transportation, to name a few examples. I can commit to 5 meetings a year and to serve any other capacity needed for the betterment of LOC. I can't state enough my dedication and passion to the LOC, and I've been at the forefront of LOC's lobbying efforts. The following are what I see as challenges for LOC: addressing equity and inclusion, COVID recovery, property tax reform, membership, the urban-rural divide, and leaving political agendas aside. None of these are easily accomplished. I'm uniquely qualified to work on these challenges because of my relationships with local, state, and federal connections and partnerships. Being on the LOC board, I will continue to represent LOC with the same passion and dedication I have throughout the years. I thank you for your time and ask for your nomination on the LOC Board of Directors.
Hey, thank you, John. Do we have any questions for Council President Goodhouse? Anybody? Okay, we see none. Thank you, John, and
thank you.
We'll move on to the next applicant. Patty.
Thank you. So the next applicant is Mayor Ron Lundbaum from the city of John Day. For committee members, that's tab 22 in your binder. For those using an electronic copy, it's page 34. After Mayor Lundbaum, it will be Scott Burge, Mayor for Scappoose. Mayor Ron Lundbaum, I hope I'm saying that right. The floor is yours. I apologize if I'm not.
No, Patty, thank you very much. And Councilor Evans and the nominating committee, thank you for this opportunity to possibly serve on the LOC board. I am a big supporter of the things the league does, and I would like to help in any way I can. A little background about myself. Owned a couple of businesses in town here. We've lived here since 1966. Raised my family here. I've been a councilor for 2 terms in the 90s, and this is my 3rd term as mayor. 2 years left to go. I've been chairman of the Airport Commission, which brought in about $10 million in improvements to our airport through the Connect Oregon program. and served as president or chairman of the Air Search. Also coach golf here, been a high school golf coach for the last 15 years. So I think I can provide a different perspective of the needs, frustrations, and desires of life in a rural community. We sometimes feel frustrated that our voices aren't heard, and many feel their way of life threatened. I think I can advocate for our cities, provide feedback on policies and legislations that affect our quality of life, and ensure the standards of the league are upheld. I can participate regularly in Region 12 small cities programs, and have hosted several, and I've attended the annual conference as often as possible. I can commit to the meetings, either virtual or live. Challenges, I think this pandemic has really highlighted the challenges with home rule. We need to make greater efforts to preserve our Oregon's home rule charter and to allow local governments the opportunity to lead, particularly in crisis management and recovery. We know better when it comes to our economy and what it takes to get our businesses back on their feet, but instead we are facing fines and closings if we don't comply. Plus, the state is withholding dollars that were intended for local communities to help recover from this pandemic. We're also facing a crisis in our public confidence. I think we can demonstrate leadership by following sound principles and make our cities models for recovery rather than foster lawlessness and anarchy. We need to show that we can listen to our residents by following the rule of law, and for all of us to assemble peacefully in a way that does not incite violence, undermine our established political institutions, and police authority in our cities. We also need to focus on infrastructure investments and legislative reforms that will allow our cities to have sustainable growth without exhausting their local resources. So thank you for the opportunity, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any questions from the committee for the mayor? Anybody?
Ron, great to have you apply from John Day. Great community.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. All right, if we have no other questions or comments, thank you, Mayor. Who's up next?
So up next is Mayor Scott Burge from the city of Scappoose. For those of you on the committee, that's tab number 26 in your binder. For those using the electronic packet, it's page 38. After Mayor Scott Burge, up next would be Mayor Roy Lindsay from the city of Grants Pass. Mayor Burge, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the reason that I decided to apply was a couple of reasons. A, I've thought about it for several years, and my former city manager, Michael Sykes, had strongly encouraged me to do so. It was unfortunate to see him go, but he's nearby at our local PUD. I think that the role of the board is really to listen to the cities and set the priorities for the organization to move forward. If we don't listen to what the cities want, we won't be able to really work with them. And the other role is to make sure that our voices in Salem and at the national, in DC, are heard. My past involvement, I've been on the city council since 1999, 8 years as city council, 14 as the mayor. I spent a year as the president of the Oregon Mayors Association, including some time on the board there. I've been involved attending meetings, lobbying the state, working our local legislators. I've never gone to DC as a part of an elected position. Mostly coming from a small town, it's hard to justify the expense, especially when we're under 5,000. Now that we're growing and in a much better fiscal position, it is much better. I can commit to 5 meetings. I'm an independent Medicare agent, so I'm extraordinarily busy right now, but I control my schedule. And also I do Uber and Lyft when I have extra time. So I drive all around the metro area. I know those roads probably better than anyone else that's been elected in that area, just because I'm driving it. You know, there's great places, but it's also very educational from a policymaker perspective and seeing the good and the bad and what's going on. I think the challenges for the League of Oregon City is the challenges of cities, and how do we move forward from everything that's happened this past year on top of everything that we were already struggling with between property tax, mental health issues that we've been lobbying for years. And those have really come to the forefront during these times. And how do cities, especially cities that depend on more than property taxes,
get through these hard times. We need a strong voice, and I've always been able to provide that for my community and the organizations I've been involved with around the county. So if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Any questions from the committee?
Is Scott, and who's your senator, state senator?
State Senator Betsy Johnson.
That's what I thought.
It's a good senator to have when you need something done for your community.
You're here.
Yeah, she takes no prisoners.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Let's move on to the next candidate.
So the next candidate up is Mayor Roy Lindsay of Grants Pass. For committee members, that's tab 24 in your packet. For those using the electronic packet, it's page 26. After Mayor Lindsay speaks, next up will be Mayor Scott Hill from McMinnville. Mayor Lindsay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Roy Lindsay and I'm Mayor of Grants Pass. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. I am grateful for the opportunity. I was elected to the City Council in 2014 and re-elected in 2018. I was unopposed. I was appointed by the council to fill the unexpired term of the previous mayor who was elected as county commissioner in 2018. I am currently running for election as mayor. There are 3 others also running for mayor. My prospects look to be excellent. I currently serve as chair of the RVCOG, Rogue Valley Council of Governments. I'm also chair of the Josephine County Housing Authority and chair of Family Solutions. It's a mental health service organization serving children. I am a graduate of the Ford Family Foundation Leadership Program and was chosen to assist in additional classes. I am a former Air Force pilot in Air Rescue Service and was a long-range first responder. I retired as a computer scientist in a narrow field and was recognized as an international expert. I believe in the success of Oregon, the success of Grants Pass, and also the success of the League. I am passionate about being on the board. I see the League as a great resource to facilitate solutions. I firmly believe that a solution may not be applicable for all. We need to find the best solution whenever possible, and it may require more than one answer to find the best result. Currently, I'm exploring Firewise Alert and Shake Alert warning systems. I firmly feel that looking for all aspects of the problem from a 20,000-foot perspective aspect has great value. Grants Pass responded quickly to the pandemic shutdown by establishing a $785,000 grant program to help small businesses. We established parklets to allow restaurants to expand their service areas onto the sidewalks and parking areas to provide more space to overcome shutdown restrictions. I feel that barriers to recovery need to be aggressively explored and alleviated when possible. Collaboration with other agencies needs to be examined and applied when possible. The League can be a catalyst to facilitate equity and equality. I firmly believe in that. I have the time to meet all obligations being on the board. I'm retired. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve and possibly be a part of this magnificent, wonderful organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Lindsay. Do we have any questions from the committee for Mayor Lindsay?
Roy, thanks for your service and great job with your community grant. Amazing amount of money you're able to deploy to help support your local businesses.
We thought so too.
Yeah, and I think you guys have the best high school football stadium in the state down there.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yep. Yep.
Well, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, Patty, let's move on to the next applicant.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Mayor Scott Hill from McMinnville. For committee members, that's tab 27 in your packet. For those using the electronic version, you're on page 29. After Mayor Hill presents, next up will be Councillor Todd Andres. I hope I said that wrong. I apologize if I haven't, from Klamath Falls. Mayor Hill, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Evans and the nominating committee. It's a great opportunity to be before you this evening. I have had the opportunity of serving the city of McMinnville for the past 26 years on the budget committee, 18 of those being chair. I've served 12 years on the city council with 2 years as council president, and I'm finishing my first 4-year term as mayor, up for re-election for another 4, and I do have 1 candidate that's running against me. McMinnville has a legacy and a heritage of good governance, forward visioning, and superior implementation. Having served as a mayor for 1 term, I feel I'm in a position to give back to the other communities with this statewide organization that provides guidance and help for others. There are many issues that affect our cities from a statewide perspective, and I'd like to assist in representing our interest at a different level for the cities. I'm passionate about the work that the League of Oregon Cities has provided and the momentum that they have and their far-reaching effects. What do I see as a role of an LOC board member? I think they are mentors, they listen to others, they advocate, and they bring governmental experience and knowledge to the plate. I've had the opportunity of testifying before the OTC 6 times over the past 4 years. I've been to Washington, D.C. 4 times over the last 4 years, once on transportation issues dealing with the Newburgh-Dundee bypass, and 3 times representing the Oregon Municipal Electric Association, where I've been the only elected official that has gone with that group. What has been my involvement with LOC? I've attended most of the LOC conferences over the last 16 years that I've been involved in city government. Most of my energies have been at a local level within the local and area governments and within my own community. I have served on the conference committee last year, on the scholarship committee and the exceptional service award committee last year. This year I was on the conference committee and the exceptional awards committee. I've also been serving this last year as a member of the Energy and Environmental Policy Committee and the Transportation Committee. I'm a member of the Mid-Willamette Act, where I'm representing Highway 99, 18, 20, 219 and 47, and I've participated in a number of LOC days at the Capitol, testifying on numerous local issues before legislative committees at the Capitol. As a member, I have used LOC services to educate myself and others within my influence about issues of local government, and have always brought others along to the LOC conference with me. Can I commit to 5 meetings? I'm retired. Yes, I'm passionate about the work. What do I see as
your time?
Mayor, your time is up.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any questions for Mayor Hill from the committee? Brad.
Thanks. And it's not really a question, more so just thank you for the decades of service that you've put into your community. And I can't let that just go by as a comment that you make and not acknowledge that, because it's significant in the amount of time city officials put in. So I just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you, Brad.
I just wanted to add to that. I was thinking the same thing, and really just how many budgets you've had to look at. So kudos to you. Thanks for your work on that.
See, I'm a ex-banker, a 37-year banker, so you know that's where my passions lie also.
It's good service time.
Well, we won't hold that against you, Mayor, because I'm an ex-banker too.
Yeah.
I work for US, so.
Yeah. Well, I was with Key, so, you know, across the street.
Any other questions? Okay, so thank you, Mayor. And Patty, who's next?
So next up is Councillor Todd Andre from Klamath Falls. For committee members, that's tab 31 in your packet. For those following along electronically, that's page 43. After Councillor Andres, next on deck would be Mayor Jerry Cole from Rainier. So Councillor Andre, you're up.
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address the nomination committee. You have a tough task in front of you tonight, and I appreciate the consideration. I moved to Klamath Falls in 1996, and I fell in love with the community and the state that I live in. With that love, I served my community through the Chamber of Commerce, being president twice of that group, the Local Economic Development Association, becoming the president of that, the United Way, becoming the president of that, serving on the Governor's Regional Solution Board, and many other committees. What I feel that I bring to your board, and the value that I believe that I bring, is that my current job naturally puts me in front of a lot of other cities or towns, the towns of Lakeview, Bonanza, Malin, Merrill, Chilcoin. It puts me in front of a sovereign nation of the Klamath tribes. And it gives me an opportunity to express what we're doing in the League of Cities as a state effort down to the regional effort that is important. The other thing is, I truly believe that this area has been misrepresented or not represented in state organizations, and I want to fill that role. Yes, I can commit to all the meetings that you need, 5 or more. The only other thing is why I ran for city council, or why I got involved in government. I saw 2 major issues. One is I unseated a 26-year incumbent who was dividing our community, and I felt it was critically important to put someone in place there to bring the community together. And so that's why I truly believe I got my seat in 2018. And within the 2nd year of serving, I became council president for the city council. The second reason is I see a major storm cloud coming in front of us, and it is for cities' revenues and expenses. What it costs to do a road today is much more expensive than what it was budgeted for 5 years ago. PERS is continuing to grow, and that liability continues to hurt our communities. So Measure 50 is something that we've got to get in front of the state and start to address. If we do not start addressing those type of concerns, we're gonna run it. It's just going to be the first community that goes bankrupt, and we can't have that happen. The other thing is wastewater treatment programs and stuff. I see that throughout our region, is that a lot of these smaller communities are having to invest heavy dollars into their wastewater treatment plants due to DEQ requirements, and they're having a struggle. They're getting loan programs, but they're still having a struggle. They don't have the customer base to really do those correctly. We need to go to the state and really advocate for these small communities.
Counselor, you're at time.
Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you, Counselor. Do we have any questions for the counselor? Anybody from the committee? I don't see any hands.
Yes.
Go ahead, Keith.
Todd, what do you do when you're not volunteering in your community? What is your profession?
So I am a regional business manager for Pacific Power. So that gives me an opportunity. What I do is work with our large industrial customers. I promote our EV and our energy efficiency programs throughout the region, also in Northern California, and then I work with all of our governmental agencies, counties, cities, and sovereign nations.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Anyone else? Questions? Okay, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's move on to the next candidate. Patty, who do we have up?
So the next candidate is Mayor Jerry Cole from Rainier. For committee members, that's tab 17 in your packet. For those of you using the electronic copy, that's page 25. After Mayor Cole, next up will be Councilor Edward Junkins from the city of Corvallis. Mayor Cole, the floor is yours.
There we go. Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Yep.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Chairman Evans and the selection committee for your consideration. Just for the record, I'm at work tonight. My employer knows that I was doing this volunteer gig here. Actually told them about the conference today, and they are really excited about a lot of the classes that I was going to take, because they actually relate to my current job, and that's working at the fire department. Anyway, the reason I'd like to be considered for the board of directors position is I'm excited about partnerships, and I'm excited to be involved in the advocacy that the league provides. The selfish reason is I want to try to provide better for my local community, and I think being on the board does help with that. So I mean that would be the selfish reason, but I mean I'm really excited to work with the members of the league. You know, the role of League of Oregon Cities board member is, you know, learn about the issues, take input, and then make a decision with our advocacy and what can help. It's no secret that the challenges are different, you know, in Klamath Falls opposed to Portland, but we have to look at all the issues and come up with it. I like a challenge. It's no secret I'm a dreamer, you know. I think to be in politics you have to be a dreamer. There's no dreams that we can't accomplish together. Professionally, I've been to DC a couple of times to lobby for local projects. Really, you know, I've been a member for 18 years. I've been mayor for 18 years. I'm running up again unopposed. And I feel it's time for me to give back to the league. Yes, I can attend 5 meetings. Some of the challenges that I think that we face, it's no secret, equity and equality. We got to get our hands around this, and we have to tackle this problem. I really think we're getting into a situation where there's a lack of affordable housing, and the rising costs of homes. It's making people homeless. It's making your kids live with you a lot longer than what they should. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just hard. And then again, the most challenging thing out of 2020 that we're going to try to come out of is COVID. No secret there. And again, thank you for the opportunity. It's an honor to be considered. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any questions from the committee for the mayor? Anybody? CM? Go for
Mayor,
it.
thank you. Mayor, when you say get our hands around, because I think one of the unique lens I have on and being a part of the League of Oregon Cities Nominating Committee is I'm representing also the EDI committee. I think there are others here that also think about that, but when you say get our hands on, can you say a little bit more?
You know, I want to learn more about what we can do. I mean, I don't have all the answers. You know, I mean, my wife's Native American. She's a member of Grand Round Tribe, you know, so I understand some of the equality issues. You know, people might say, oh, what do you mean? There's no equality issues there. But, you know, I'm married to this woman. I see them, you know. I have, you know, friends that, you know, struggle that, you know, and I don't have all the answers, but I want to learn and come up and collaborate on what we can do.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Committee members? Okay.
Thanks again for the opportunity, and I appreciate your guys' service.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate your coming out tonight.
Thanks.
So Patty, who's next?
Before I get to that, last check. If Kelly Johnson is present, can you please say here? Roland Herrera, if he is here, can you say here? Summer Madison? I would note that Gretchen Buchner is not here, although she did contact me yesterday. There was a family emergency. She still wishes to be considered, but she couldn't make it today. So seeing that the others have not identified themselves as present, the last person to hear from today is Councilor Edward Junkins from the city of Corvallis. For committee members, that's tab 15 in your binder. For those following along with the electronic packet, you're on page 22. Councillor Junkins, the floor is yours.
Hi, well, I'm last. Thank you for a very long night. My name is Ed Junkins, and I use pronouns he, him, his, and I identify as an African American. I have privilege as a heterosexual, able male, and I bring passionate community advocacy. For decades, I've served in my role as a physician, pediatrician, and emergency physician, doing advocacy work, one patient at a time. In 2016, I became activated as a civil servant. I was elected to the city council and to the school board around that time, and I am presently running unopposed to city council. During my time as a civil servant, I have established equity goals and worked for hate bias reduction, as you've heard previously from my colleague. I serve on multiple boards, commissions, and foundations throughout the community. And presently, I vice chair the Senate Bill 770 Joint Task Force on Healthcare in Oregon. So why am I interested in this? Well, frankly, because I was invited. I am the result of the League of Oregon Cities outreach in looking for more diversity. I see the League of Oregon City Board of Directors as the face of the organization, and I'm looking to make impact. I believe I can do that because of the perspective I bring as a public health officer. I've spent time on the Navajo Reservation as an emergency room physician working in inner city with a bunch of different kinds of underserved population, as an educator for 3 decades, and as a minority voice working in Lebanon, Oregon, where I'm the senior associate dean at the medical school there. The experience I have, I am serving on the same panel that Councillor Pace mentioned earlier. That panel is looking at diverse leadership, as well as I was just recently appointed to the League's Committee on Equity. The challenge I see that the League is facing is visualizing success. Visualizing success after a time when the deck has been reshuffled due to pandemics. The League is, the Board of Directors has fantastic people. I found them wonderfully engaging the administration. And I've looked at the strategic plan, and the goals are ambitious. And the goal in particular to establish an organization that welcomes and eliminates barriers requires that perspective. My strength is to find and leverage the best in others, to build my team members up, and to collaborate and to connect. I agree with candidate Hicks when she said there are a number of great candidates, and I believe that you have a very tough choice ahead of you. I can commit to all the meetings. I believe that if you want to get the work done, you find the busiest person in the room to do it, and I will be there for you. So I appreciate the time, and I welcome any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have any questions for Councillor Junkins?
It's been a long night.
Yeah, it has.
Great job, Ed.
We're not that far outside of our window. We're about 18 minutes off. So
I have a question, Councillor Evans.
go ahead, Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time to be here tonight. I'm wondering, have you been involved in the People of Color Caucus that's just been formed?
Yeah, so I was invited to offer my perspective. That happened very, very quickly. At the same time, we were trying to organize the panel. At the same time, I was trying to launch a DEI curriculum at my medical school. So I wasn't able to be involved with that, but I think it's a great step forward. I've been doing DEI work for decades, and the fact that since the spring, we have seen this level of activation nationally, regionally, and in our communities allows me to finally breathe for the first time in a very, very long time. So I support that effort, and I will engage in that caucus. Whatever happens tonight, I've been appointed to the Equity Lens Committee, and I'm thankful because that group is fantastic. And Beach did a fantastic job with that panel the other day.
My husband was a doctor. I know how busy you are, so thank you very much.
Well, I've transitioned out of clinical. Honestly, I can make more impact doing what I'm doing now. So I do very little in clinical now. And as an emergency physician, it's a young person's sport. So I've got too many gray hairs to be doing that too long. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Other questions from the committee for the counselor? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, counselor. And Patty, I think, are we at the end of our candidates?
I'll do one last opportunity. Kelly Johnson from Central Point, are you on the line? Roland Herrera from Kaiser. And Summer Madison from Gold Beach. Then you've concluded with all applicants.
Can I just clarify the process? Because it says in the process that it would be randomized and that people would be contacted when it was their turn, I'm a little concerned that these people think we're calling them.
Councillor Hall, we've been making multiple outreaches since we started when we realized that not everybody had joined the call promptly at 6:30.
Maybe I just missed that clarity. Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz, you had your hand up.
It was actually left over from before, but I did actually just check the bylaws, which Patty by the way, thank you so much, Patty, for all the work you put into the binder and everything. It's been quite amazing to get all that information ahead of time. Thank you, President Evans, for getting the historical information. I found that really helpful, as well as the demographic information. The bylaws do say that a person doesn't have to, they say that nominees or applicants can present here, but it doesn't say they have to present. So I think we can still consider those who sent in application forms.
Yeah, you know, we've got their written applications, so we could put that into consideration. Brad?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to kind of mirror that to an extent. I was not actually able to come before the nominating committee for my own position. The way schedules worked, I was actually at a NATOA meeting over on the East Coast and was unable to attend that. And so we don't just throw somebody out of the mix because they weren't actually here. We have their provided paperwork, which was, you know, essentially the requirement. So I just want to make sure that we don't just cast people aside if they weren't present.
As far as I'm concerned, everybody is in who submitted an application. So we want to take all of that under consideration. Mayor Lindsay, I saw your hand up. Are you adjusting your camera or are you leaving? Okay, all right. So next, I think we need to agree on the process that we're going to move forward with in terms of evaluating our candidates. I'd like to make a couple of suggestions to the nominating committee. One, that we narrow down the number of candidates that we have. So what I'm suggesting is that each of us pick out our top 5 candidates. Once we have done that, and maybe we want to do that in rank order or maybe not, just our top 5 candidates. And then we want to have some time to discuss them. I want to give everyone a break now. If you need, maybe, let's see, what time are we at? We're at 8:53. Do we want to do some evaluation of what we have heard tonight and what we have in the packet, and then come back and meet at 9:05 to deliberate and discuss both the treasurer position, the candidates for that position, as well as the candidates for the 3 open board positions. In addition to that, we will have to deal with the recommendation for the city manager position. And that's coming from the Oregon City and County Management Association. And they have forwarded the name of City Manager John Walsh of St. Helens. to serve on the board as their representative. So we'll have to affirm that as we move forward in the process. So do we want to take 10 or do you need maybe 15? Brad?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And regarding process, I think we need to move through the treasurer position because that will affect my choices for the others as well. And I have multiple scenarios and I've been tracking all the communication as well. And so 10 minutes would be great just to stretch my legs for a little bit. But then I'm ready to move forward.
So yeah, we're going to deal with the treasurer position first, then the open board seats, and after that, the city manager recommendation. Does that sound good for everybody?
Yep.
And I've got a top 9, so it's going to be pretty difficult to whittle it down to the top 5. But I think the best way for us to do that is to whittle it down to a top 5. And I also want to recognize Patty along with Commissioner Fritz on this. You've done an outstanding job of researching and putting together the information that we need in terms of the demographics, in terms of the regional representation, race and ethnicity, gender, and counselors versus mayors and who have served in these positions over the last 15 years. So that was a lot of work, and you did an outstanding job, and thank you for what you have done. So, I'm giving you a hand here. So let's take, do we want 10 or 15? 10? Okay.
For this, we might
go ahead, Commissioner Fitz.
We might lose some people during the break, some of the participants. So I just wanted to say, really impressive. I'm very, very happy that we have such great choices. And I didn't win election the first time I ran for office. So keep that in mind, that sometimes you try again, since we have only 3 director positions for councillors that we're able to do. So try again next year if you don't make it this time. Thanks, everybody.
And
I likewise. Impressive slate. Impressive slate.
It's going to be so difficult to try to pick. I got to tell you, going through this, I was just thinking, holy smokes, how are we going to make this decision?
I was just thinking how lucky Oregon is.
Yes.
You're here.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Patty, but I think that this is one of the largest applicant pools that
ever
has had in years.
So I will be honest, there's only electronic records that are 7 years back, and I was unwilling to come into the office and dig through paper records since it wasn't an actual order. But in the last 7 years, yes, you have blown the applicant pool completely out of the water, and not just in sheer volume, but quite frankly in diversity, whether that's regional, whether that's city size, whether that's gender, whether that's people of color. You blew the roof off in terms of applicants this year in every measurable way.
Yeah.
You got an outstanding pool. So let's take 10, and then we will come back at 9:08, and let's try to focus on each of our top 5, and we will go through each member of the committee for one round. And
first treasurer, right?
First treasurer, yes.
Yep, and then we'll announce our top 5.
Yeah, and then we will deal with the 3 open seats on the board, and then we will deal with the recommendation from the City Managers Association. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, 9:08. We'll be back. Okay, folks, by my clock, it is 9:08. And Patty, do we want to just for good sake, call the roll of the committee again? Make sure we got everybody back with us.
Yes, that would make my lawyer heart happy to know that we for sure had a quorum. So Councillor Greg Evans.
Here.
Councillor Brad Menke.
Here.
Mayor Keith Mays.
Here.
Commissioner Amanda Fritz.
Here.
City Manager Scott Derrickson.
Here.
Councillor Drew Farmer.
Here.
And Councillor C.M. Hall.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Okay, so we've got everybody in the house. So the first position that we are going to discuss is the position of treasurer. We have 3 candidates. What I have done, and I don't know with the rest of you, I've ranked them in the order that I think their presentations merited. So do we want to, and I don't know, is Jenna still on the line? Jenna, if you want to keep track for us of.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to put everything on our lawyers. So here we go. Let's see who.
So Greg, what's your thoughts, Chair?
You want to know what my thought? I was going to go last, but.
Why don't we just go with our number 1 to start off with?
Okay, so let's go with number 1s. So why don't you, let's start with Keith, and then we'll go to Brad, and then CM, and Amanda, and Drew, and Scott.
I'd rather go before you, Greg, or so. Let's let other
Who
folks
wants to
weigh
go
in.
first?
I would go first. It's like, just let's throw them out.
Or I'll volunteer somebody.
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
My number 1 is Dave Drotzman of Hermiston. I think his work on the Equity and Inclusion Committee, his work on the League of Board, he listens more than he talks, like he said. And I think I saw somewhere in the materials that there's either never been a president from Eastern Oregon, or there certainly hasn't been one for the last 15 years. So, we're looking at race, we're looking at gender, we're looking at geographic distribution. And for me, the geographic and just the way that Mayor Drotzman does work makes him the clear winner for me.
Okay, good. Who's next?
I'm
gonna volunteer you, Brad.
Thank you. Mayor Drossman was high on my list, except for the fact that his city manager is also on the board, which makes it difficult for me. So my first choice was Mayor Clark.
Okay.
Kaiser.
All right. CM.
Well, Dave, is that his name? Dave, I was my number 2, and my number 1 is Steve Calloway. And just really, I think for the reasons even actually that Amanda mentioned were the reasons that I thought Steve, right, in terms of the work I've seen them do with the league and preparedness and qualifications, but really all 3 are so qualified.
Okay, good. Drew, who's your number 1?
My number 1 was Steve because of the depth of experience, the interaction with the transportation aspects is going to still a huge issue, in particular for us on the coast. Having currently being the president of the Mayor's Association, interaction with the National League of Cities, there's just a lot there. If he weren't to be my first, that I would feel like we're turning down. As far as my second, that's difficult. So I'll stick to firsts for now until we're compelled.
Okay. All right, Scott.
Well, it's tough. You know, as a city administrator, you really want all elected officials to be successful. And there's certainly a lot of people that were on the screen tonight that I've encountered over the years. And I just hold them all in the highest regard, for sure. I have to say that Mayor Drotzman was my top choice. It was close, but for many of the reasons that Commissioner Fritz said, I agree with, and he just ever so slightly edged out the top spot on my list.
Okay. Keith.
Yeah, they're all outstanding applicants. And I commented to somebody that if I went up against any of these three 2 years ago, I would not have gotten the job. And because these are great folks. I'm waiting. How much should I care that Dave's city manager is also on the board? Steve has done an outstanding job as well. Steve is term limited. So if we want Steve to be involved, this is the year to elect Steve, and we could elect Dave next year. But it has been 5 years, 6 years since Central or Eastern Oregon we've had someone in the pipeline. So I would, if we want Steve, this is the year for Steve. I know he'll be involved if we do not elect or recommend him. You know, I like them all very much. It's incredibly difficult. So I would put Steve number 1.
Okay.
Dave number 2. And the only reason that that's the order is because of the city manager also on the board.
Okay. CM?
I do want to ask a question because I thought that was a really good point that you brought up, Brad, about the possibility that like there might be 2 people serving from the same city. I think that would be the same case in terms of potential candidates for the city or for the board of director position as well, right?
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
I mean, because I think we had all 3, right? Hermiston, Kaiser, and Hillsborough. So it would be someone in, you know, it could be someone in both of those positions.
Which is why we need to do treasurer first, because that can affect how many different people from different cities might be in the running.
If I may,
go ahead, Drew.
There's also a specific distinction in this case because Mayor Drotzman being the mayor of that city and them being the employer of the city manager, that creates a unique circumstance that doesn't exist when we're just looking at 2 councilors in the same city.
The city manager position is not an ongoing one. The treasurer position is as long as they stay elected. And so the chance to have somebody on, which year is the Hermiston city manager? Of the 1, 2, 3, which year is he?
He's in 2, he's in 1 right now. He goes into, he's got 2 years left after this year.
He wouldn't be on the board when Dave is president.
Yes, he would. No, not the
You're
year
right.
president. He would be the year while he's treasurer and vice president.
Yeah,
right.
Excellent point, Amanda. Excellent point.
We
haven't heard from Greg yet.
Yeah, well, I'll throw my 2 cents in. Like everybody else, I've had a really tough time with choosing between 3 people that I consider to be friends, and you know, I've known Mayor Clark for about 13, 14 years. We've served at OMPOC together, and other things when I was on the transit board in Eugene. You know, Mayor Drotzman, you know, I like the fact that he is from, you know, Eastern Oregon, that part of Oregon, and we have not had the representation in the pipeline, you know, for the, you know, treasurer and subsequently vice president, president position for a number of years. But my vote for number one is Mayor Callaway. You know, I think that Mayor Callaway, with all the rest of the candidates, he has the heart, he has the passion, he has vision, and I think he would serve us well, not only as treasurer, but subsequently as vice president and president. So that's my number one vote. Let's go back over where who has what in terms of votes so far. So we have 1 for Mayor Clark, we have 2 for Mayor Drotzman, and we have 4 for Mayor Callaway. So should we take a vote, or how do you want to proceed?
Technically, we need to make a vote.
Okay.
Either, I mean, now or later, but.
I think we should entertain a motion.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion?
I move we recommend Steve Callaway to be treasurer to the.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Call for the question. All those in, do we have any other nominations? Seeing none.
Call vote, or how do we want to do this, Patty?
Vote. I'm just gonna say. So let's do it individually so everybody can be on the record. Commissioner Fritz.
With all that, Mayor Callaway, I greatly appreciate him. He's been a great colleague. Having another president from the Metro is problematic. So I'm no.
You're no. Okay. Brad?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. CM?
Aye.
Yes. Drew? I didn't hear you, Drew.
Aye.
Okay, you're a yes, you're a aye. Scott?
Aye.
Okay, you got a yes there. Keith?
Aye.
Okay. And then I'm an aye as well. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes for Mayor Callaway, 2 dissenting votes. So Mayor Steve Callaway will be our next treasurer. Congratulations, Steve.
Amanda, I just want to let you know, I couldn't hear what you said. The audio is really choppy on whatever you said with your name. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, I can hear.
Oh, well, I wanted to make sure that Mayor Callaway knows I really appreciate his service, and he's been a great ally to me on the board. I really, you know, and a great leader in our community. I just think that having another president from the metro area is problematic.
Thanks.
So noted. Okay, let's move to the 3 open positions on the board for director. Do we want to discuss each candidate, or do we want to submit our top 5? Amanda.
Let's do the 5.
Okay. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Five. Okay. So let's start. And, Jenna, you're writing this down, right? I am too, but just for the record.
I am.
Or Patty.
I will send you a chat with what I have written down once I'm done.
Okay, sounds good, Patty. So let's go. Amanda, who are your top 5 tonight?
Beach, Pace, Councillor Herrera, because even though he couldn't be here tonight, he's been present at so many Equity and Inclusion Committee meetings. He's the leader of the Caucus People of Colour. He's done a really great job. He's from Kaiser. Dr. Jenkins, Councillor Jenkins, and McKenna MacDonald from Pendleton.
You have one more in there. Or you just want 4?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Burns.
Mayor who?
Arlene Burns from Mosier.
Burns. Okay, Mayor Burns.
We don't have anybody from the Gorge, and her experience, that was pretty impressive with all the connections she's made. I was like, oh, you can go talk to the governor for us.
All right, great. Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In light of geographical representation throughout the state, I also had Mayor Burns from Mosier, Councillor Andrews from Klamath Falls, Mayor and Teeny Print Lundum from John Day, Councillor Peralta from McMinnville, and this one's tough. I have a big issue that we have a sitting member on the National League of Cities who's not represented on our board, with Council President Goodhouse. And so I don't know what options we have for that as an organization, but it's then between that and again, Councillor McDonald from Pendleton would be kind of how I split that last position. So I don't know how to deal with that one.
Eddie, if I could ask a quick question. As incoming president and presiding officer of the board meetings, I can invite folks to the meeting and they could participate if I call on them. Correct? Mainly if like John Goodhouse could be a guest next year, simply because of his role with the National League of Cities.
Yes, actually, while most people don't take us up on it, the presidents of all of the league's affiliates, and there's like 15 of them, are permitted to sit at the table. They're treated for voting purposes like past presidents. They have a different colored name tag. I know that causes some consternation. But yes, there would be nothing that would prohibit you from inviting a member of the NLC to sit and discuss. They couldn't vote, but you could certainly treat them the same way you would as an OMA president.
Ex officio member type deal.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be permissible.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Again,
that's my plan.
Thank you.
That's my plan.
And then knowing that, our treasurer is also going to be from the metro area, then I would also go then with Councillor McDonald out of Pendleton for my 5th choice.
Okay. All right, good. CM, your top 5.
I'm not ready.
You're not ready?
I mean, I can be ready, but okay. In no particular order. Roy Barone from Hermiston, Beach Pace from Hillsborough, Daniel Wen from Lake Oswego, Ed Junkins from Corvallis, and Roland Herrera from Kaiser.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's go to Drew. Drew?
All right. So my top two are, because there's no representation in their regions, Todd Andre and Arlene Burns. And of course, they were both impressive. Third one, I didn't write down Roland's last name. My mistake. Yep. But I mean, he's been committed to coming to the meetings as much as if he were already on the board. So, and he was instrumental in the DEI committee. So those are my top three. From there, Sal Peralta, because of his public policy experience. It's going to be some tough lobbying years, and I'd like to have somebody dug into that field along with us. And the fifth slot was a tough one, waffling between Ron or Summer. Summer Madison is down in Curry County. I've been doing a lot more work down there in my day job, and it occurs to me each time I'm down there that they're kind of isolated from the occurrences in the rest of the state. So I think I'd go with Summer on that one.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's go to Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll say my number one pick and then the rest in any order. But Beach Pace from Hillsborough, Daniel Wynn from Lake Oswego, Councilor Roy Barron from Hermiston, Mayor Lundbaum from John Day, and Arlene Burns from Moiser.
Great. Okay. Keith.
Microphone's on. Great. Roland Herrera, Arlene Burns, Todd Andres, Summer Madsen, and Scott Burge. Scappoose.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah, I wrote mine down here somewhere. So for me, my number one is Beach. Number two, Daniel Wynn. Number three, Todd Andrus from K Falls. And my number four is Roland Herrera. Do I have one more? I think I got one more to go. And then I have Mayor Lundbaum.
Counselor Evan, give me just a second to put this together, and then I'll share my screen. It'll be last names of candidates and how many people they got, or how many votes they got.
While you're doing that, would it be appropriate to make the city manager position the nomination for the OCMA recommended?
Yes,
yes, it would. So I'll entertain a motion for the OCC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move that the city appoint John Walsh, the city manager of St. Helens, to fill the OCMA recommended position for city manager.
Second.
Moved and seconded, moved by Scott, seconded by Amanda. Any discussion on the motion? Call for the question. All let's go by order. So Amanda.
Aye.
Okay. Aye. Brad.
Aye.
CM.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
And then me. Aye. So we have a unanimous vote here, 7-0. John Walsh, City Manager, St. Helens, is appointed for the, or be recommended as a nominee for the City Manager position on the board. Okay. And then we'll let Patty go to work.
Minutes. So we need a few more minutes, Councilor Evans. What I would suggest is that we still have not approved the minutes of the September 26, 2019 nominating committee. I do need this committee to do that. So while Jenna is finishing putting together a document for y'all to review regarding the elected official director positions, perhaps we could have a motion, second, and vote on the September 26, 2019 minutes.
I was actually at the meeting. I wasn't on the committee, and it was really difficult to hear because they kind of whispered. So, but I think that the minutes do reflect what happened. So I move acceptance of the minutes.
Is there a second? Scott is seconded. Any discussion? Any question? All those in favor? Amanda?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
CM?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
And me, I'm an aye. So the motion passes for the minutes of the last meeting, 7-0.
Councilor Evans, Jenna still needs a little bit more time.
Okay.
It might be possible, if you'd like, I can remind the committee of what the bylaws require you to consider. Since you've got multiple positions you have to fill for this, it may be helpful to look at what the bylaws require you to consider. Would that be useful information for the committee?
Yeah, I think it
Kind of
would. So yeah,
Okay.
why don't you do a quick tutorial for us?
Sure. So your job as the nominating committee is to look at the current composition of the board as you know it for next year. That was included with your binders. You have that information. And in addition to considering current composition, you should also consider representation from all geographic regions of the state. You should also consider representations from cities with small, medium, and large populations, and representations from underserved and underrepresented communities. The bylaws further allow you to consider other factors or qualifications that will ensure that the board of directors effectively represents all Oregon cities. And since I can tell that Jenna is still working, I will add in a caveat. Much like you can have nominations from the floor of a nominating committee, the membership is also permitted to do nominations from the floor of the annual business meeting tomorrow. So while the nominating committee will finalize and submit a slate of candidates tonight, there is the opportunity tomorrow for members to do further nominations from the floor. I'm not saying it will or will not happen. I just like people to be clear on that. And then the last thing I would note for those that are listening as Jenna's finalizing things is that I advise all applicants for the position that we will notify everybody of the selection of the slate of candidates before this evening concludes, assuming you conclude before midnight. If you don't conclude before midnight, I will do it tomorrow morning. But those will go out later. Jenna's posted the results up on the slide for you all to look. She shared her screen, so I will be quiet. Yeah.
Can you enlarge that like 27 magnification?
Yes, yes, I was gonna do that, and can you see it?
Most excellent.
Not yet.
I can do it a little bit bigger and split it into two columns. I just wanted to talk really quickly about what you're seeing. So I did it by everyone's last name. So if you have any questions on who is who, just let me know and I can pull the information for you. But I highlighted the folks who got the most votes. There is a tie for the third place vote. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Okay. Is everyone good with the top 4 that we have? Or does someone want to make a case for someone else to be included?
Knowing that we only have 3 positions available for those 4.
3 positions available, yes.
And unfortunately, if we're going to use the same rationale that we had before, if we're going to have Mayor Callaway as the president, then we can't have Councillor Pace.
Yeah, that would be true.
Yeah, that's why she wasn't in my top 5. That's
right.
And Andre represents a region that is not currently represented.
Yeah.
Councillor Andrus represents K Falls, and I don't think that they have representation. The same thing with Mayor Burns. She represents a small city and a region that we don't have currently represented. And Councillor Herrera is from the Valley, but he is a person of color and a longtime member of this organization, as well as being on the Kaiser City Council. So,
Sorry, I'm getting a little dopey here. It's been a long day. A lot of these people who are in the top 4, although weren't either my top pick or on my list, were still close. I mean, I personally would be comfortable in voting for certainly Burns and Councilor Herrera. I understand the conflict with Hillsborough, with Mayor Callaway and Pace. Although Pace was my first choice, I would vote for Andrews because of the geographic representation.
Other thoughts, comments?
Who else do we have from Eastern Oregon then?
Well,
we have
So if I may, Commissioner Fritz,
we have Peter
your Eastern
Hall,
Oregon rep.
Haynes.
Actually, we do have someone.
We have Byron Smith, Hermiston,
and also our counselor from
Klamath Falls.
No, way out
is Eastern.
Haynes.
That would be Andres.
Klamath Falls isn't Eastern.
No, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me look, because I did appoint
Steve Uffelman, Prineville. Yeah.
Well, we have Lundman from.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And we have Peter Hall, and I appointed Peter Hall, and he is from Haynes, population 600, and that's as far east as you can go, except for Ontario. So we have representation from Eastern Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
12 regions and 12 formal board positions minus the city manager candidates. So
I would like to switch one of my votes.
Other questions or comments?
Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, I think Summer Matheson, did she not get more than 2 votes?
No.
Okay.
I would make a motion if it's okay, Greg.
Go ahead.
I move that we recommend to the membership Andres, Burns, and Herrera to the
Is
board.
there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Mays, seconded by Councilor Farmer. Are there any other
can't hear you, Greg.
nominations or recommendations? Is everybody comfortable with the 3 that have been moved and nominated by Mayor Mays? CM, you got your hand up.
Is it just me? I can't hear you.
Wait a minute. Let me.
I can hear you.
I'm not on mute.
You're not on mute.
Yeah, I'm off of mute, so I don't know what's going on. It's.
my system's been having some problems as well. You apparently haven't been able to hear me or people out on the the other feed haven't been able to hear me either.
Well, yeah, and this week Zoom has had problems. They went down a couple of times.
For some reason, I can't hear anybody.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason.
I can't hear a thing.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Brad, can you hear me?
I hear everyone.
Okay.
I do too.
So I don't know why I can't hear you.
Keith, turn off your camera and turn it back on.
Okay. So I don't know. My microphone says it's hearing me.
We're hearing you.
Control center, Patty, are you muting me or something?
We hear you.
Yeah. Turn your camera off, turn it back on.
Or just turn your camera off. Sometimes the sound works better with your camera off.
Yeah, a lot of times it takes up more bandwidth than just the audio.
Yeah, I can't.
Could you stop sharing the screen now, please, so we can see each other? Thank you.
There we go. I figured it out.
All right. So do we have anybody else who wants to speak to the motion or present a different motion?
I think I just, forgive me, I'm new. So I just want to just speak on this. I am not sure, I recognize there is geographic diversity, and I still think that if we're looking at the commitment to EDI work, we're not hitting it in terms of addressing demographics around race, and we're not hitting it around gender really, and we're not necessarily, I mean, so those are factors. And I also think, you know, that LGBTQ identity is relevant. We have LGBTQ Oregonians. I don't know everyone's sexual orientation on the board, but I just want to say there's a piece of that that feels missing to me. And again, I'm new, so you can just chalk this up to my being new. But it does feel like it didn't, you know, like it didn't get to any more of that representation that I think we were looking for. That's just my take. I
agree. I think Dr. Jenkins was really impressive. I think Councillor Pace is really impressive. And as Councillor Hall says, it's kind of missing the mark for me.
The problem is that we have only 3 positions to fill, and that's a tough one to do under these circumstances, and with the number of applicants that we've had. I will point out that Mayor Burns is a woman, and she is from a small city in the Columbia Gorge region. Councilor Andrus is farther south and east in Klamath Falls, so that's another small city as well, and an area that has not been represented for a long time. And Councilor Herrera is Latinx and has been a longtime member of LOC and on the Kaiser City Council. You know, I know that there will be some opportunities next year for you know, people to apply. So, you know, this isn't the end of anything. This is like we're locking it away forever.
That's not true, because Councillor Pace will not be able to apply, and because President Callaway will be there. So, and also, I'm feeling like if we're going to, it's really frustrating.
Well, it is. I mean, you know, it's.
But we're going to have 2 women on the board next year. You're going to have 2 people of color on the board next year, and we're going to take one of our 3 spots for somebody who isn't in either of those groups.
Other comments?
I'd like to make another comment, actually. Just that what I read in terms of the responsibility of being on the nominating committee was to make that appeal to people who are from underrepresented populations, even if it meant we weren't checking a geographic diversity box. So that's why I was keeping that in mind. Was I've been hearing a lot, maybe I'm just only on hearing it, around people like not feeling like they have that representation on the board. I don't think we did it.
So we could also entertain another motion for a different slate, or to whatever. So does anyone have any consideration for making another motion to do that? Wow, we have one on the floor. But the way we run stuff in Eugene, we've got motions and then substitute motions.
You can have a substitute motion if you wanted to.
Yeah. So we'll entertain a substitute motion if someone has a substitute motion.
Just to contribute to the conversation, I'd like to hop in here related to invisible demographics. I would fall under the bi category when we talk about BIPOC. So it's not something you see talking to me, but it's there.
Okay. So, Scott?
Chair Evans, one of the ways I think about this is we've got a really rich applicant pool of people who are willing and wanting to serve. And there are a lot of opportunities now for people to engage in the League of Oregon Cities. And, I hope that however this vote goes, or whatever the motions are going to be, that we'll reach out to those people who want to serve and help advance our goals here next year, and seek board positions in the future as well. So there's still opportunities to influence the League of Oregon City in the direction we go.
And the other thing is, with Mayor Mays being the incoming president, there are other positions like committee chairs that Mayor Mays can make appointments to as well. And then that puts people in the queue to, move forward or move up and apply that. But I do think that at some point, we're going to have to deal with the issue of, two board members being from the same city, and whether we want to, no longer want to do that, or whatever the case would be. I'm not sure if that's written into the bylaws. I don't think it is, Patty. It's not written into the bylaws. So, does anybody want to make a substitute motion?
No, but comment in general, in regards to the fact that the league represents 241 cities that are located all over the state. To me, bottom line has always been that geographical representation piece, because you have cities all over the entire state, and if we're leaving out a big chunk of our state, we're not representing people. We had a wonderful applicant pool tonight. We've always, as well, from the league perspective, tried to create a political balance, which is difficult in the state of Oregon because the politics from Valley Coast, Eastern Oregon vary greatly. And so that's extremely important. Or you get no one ever applies from an area if they don't feel like they're actually even being represented by our organization. And at the state legislature, you'll hear characteristics of what they think our group is politically. But diversity takes on many faces. I mean, we need to be politically diverse. We need to be geographically diverse. We need to be diverse in sexuality. The list goes on and on. All those things that you're not supposed to discriminate people on. But we have 12 people, and that's really difficult to balance across this system. But ultimately, we represent 241 cities.
149.
Make sure that their voices feel heard, or we'll lose them. We've had cities actually contemplate leaving the organization, even though they get significant benefits from CIS.
I had something to just pop into my head. and I'm not doing this because we've had some discussion floating around this country about adding Supreme Court members. But I know that if we really want to expand the opportunity pool, that at some point we need to look at expanding the number of members that we have on the board.
Excellent point, Greg.
I would be perfectly happy if we went to 16. But that takes a bylaws change and some other things that we would have to do in order to do that. But that's something that I think we all should consider, because again, we have again, regional diversity, racial diversity, gender diversity. We have all of those pieces there. And I don't think that a board of 16 members would be too unwieldy. I've dealt with bigger boards than that. So that's an idea. I'm throwing it out on the table. And after this meeting, if somebody, I'm willing to support anything that would, expand the number of people on the board and also provide more opportunities for people who have been traditionally not included, in membership on the board.
Depends on if COVID goes away and we have to feed them all lunch.
Will be money well spent.
What's that, Keith?
I agree on your idea, Greg, of having a good conversation of expanding the numbers, because to deal with the variety of needs, do it right. Yeah, I don't know if 16 is the right number, but a larger number.
Yeah. So we can't decide that tonight. But again, I'll ask for a third time. Does anyone have a substitute motion to the motion on the floor now?
And did I miss, was it seconded, Greg?
It was seconded, yes. It was moved and seconded. So does anyone have a substitute motion?
I think you have to vote on the main motion and then you get a different one.
No, you vote on the
main one, it's done.
In the main motion. If we vote on the substitute motion and then that replaces the main motion, then we vote on the main motion, which is would be the substitute motion at that point.
I never go down this rabbit hole.
We gotta have Kevin here next time. He'd straighten us out.
Patty's on the call.
I just want to, sorry, I got to say, it's so hard to be the one. It's so hard to be the one female if it's a one female, although this would double that, woo. And it's so hard to be the one in terms of the gentleman who is a person of color who identifies Latinx. I'm sorry, Drew, I want to be clear. When you said you identify as bi, so you identify as Black or Indigenous is what you mean?
No, bisexual, sorry.
Okay, so that's what I want to clarify, because I'm like, I think that's not what, I didn't know if that's what you meant. So that's the piece is, it feels slow. It just feels slow. It just feels like the work of the EDI committee, it feels that much slower. So I guess the EDI committee and the bylaws committee are going to be best friends to look at this kind of expansion, right? Because I recognize your point, Brad, about geographic diversity, and that isn't all, because we have a composition of board that is not reflective of our communities.
Patty, question.
Patty, go ahead.
I don't know if this is germane, but I had a momentary panic attack when we suggested that we would expand the board, because my memory was tweaking about something that the bylaws committee had touched on this issue with making the non-voting city manager position voting. So the 190 agreement limits the number of board members that you can have that have voting authority. So expanding your board by additional voting members would require 241 cities to agree and sign the 190 agreement. I'm not saying that's not impossible, but historically we have been leery to suggest changes that would require that level of I don't know if commitment is the right word, but historically the board has avoided changing the 190 agreement given the difficulty in doing that.
And Patty, if I remember correctly, it was a voting city manager and 2 additional board members that we explored at one point.
We did, and so again, so we just, Jamie Hafner, who's here and you can't see because she didn't want to be on camera, she pulled the 190 agreement for me, and you are limited to 5 voting officers and 11, sorry, 4, yeah, you're limited by the actual 190 agreement. So this is not something that you could take to the membership to change at, say, an annual membership meeting like you would with the Constitution. You would have to amend the 190 agreement and get 241 city councils to agree to the amendment.
Wow.
Thank you, Patty.
So I'm not going to be able to go to sleep tonight if I don't make a substitute motion because I'm really concerned. And so I would like to have the slates be Mayor Burns, Councillor Herrera, and Councillor Pace.
Okay, so you're making a motion to that effect, substitute motion, Amanda?
I am, and CM just
Beach for Councillor Andrus?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
CM seconded it.
CM is seconding it. So at this point, let's take a vote on the substitute motion, and we'll do it by roll call.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify procedurally? So are we voting to have 2 motions on the floor? Or are we voting to validate the motion to be considered? I just want to make sure I'm tracking this laid out.
There was a main motion, now we have a substitute motion. We have to vote on the substitute motion. If it fails, we go back to the main motion.
Yeah.
What happens to the main motion?
If the substitute motion passes, it disappears.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'd like to speak to my motion, please.
Go ahead, Amanda.
We really need more women on the board. We need more people who are going to contribute to the diversity. It shouldn't matter. We shouldn't because we've selected the president to be from Hillsborough, who happens to be a white male, that should not exclude a female who's in the LGBT community from ever serving on the board. And so I just think that it's a different kind of diversity, and it doesn't matter they're both from the same place.
Okay, so noted. Anybody else that wants to speak to the substitute motion? Okay.
Just one last time, could you please read the names in the substitute motion that we're voting on, just so I...
It would be Councillor Herrera, Councillor Pace, and Mayor Burns.
Okay. So let's go through the roll call. Patty?
Councillor Brad Menke?
Hey.
I'm sorry, Councillor, can you say no or yes? I can't hear the difference.
No.
Okay, thank you. It's just hard to hear the difference between yay and nay. Mayor Keith Mays?
No.
Commissioner Amanda Fritz?
Yes.
City Manager Scott Derrickson?
Yes.
Councillor Drew Farmer?
Sorry, I'm busy.
Councillor
Can we come back to me?
Yes, I can come back to you. Councillor CM Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Evans, are you fine going before Councillor Farmer?
Yeah, I am. Yes.
Okay. You said yes?
Yes.
Okay, and then Councillor Farmer?
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 5 yeses and 2 nos.
Yep.
Okay.
My friends, I'll be able to speak tonight.
Yeah. So the substitute motion passes and replaces the main motion. So that would be Beach, It would be Mayor. Now I'm getting punch drunk.
Arlene Burns from Moja.
Mayor Burns, and Roland.
Roland Herrera from Kyle.
Okay. So that passed 5-2. And that's the recommendation that we are going to make to the body from the report from the nominating committee tomorrow.
Very good.
All good?
Congratulations to the nominees, the recommendations. Thank you all for applying, and we will find hopefully new other roles so we can all stay involved.
Well, I think that's a really important point. Thank you for saying that. All the participants that are still watching, there are opportunities for you to make a difference at the League of Oregon Cities in your communities. You're already doing that, and I encourage you to please continue your pursuit to be part of the League of Oregon Cities.
I agree.
Like I said, Mayor Mays has the ability to appoint committee chairs, and we have several important committees, including transportation, finance, and about 2 or 3 other ones as well. So, you know, we can get people in the queue and further diversify the organization in that fashion. So does anybody else have anything for the good of the order tonight?
I want to know where all the parties are. Usually we'd go out and go around to everybody's rooms and get free booze. So is that?
And I'm going to bed.
You'll have to get your own booze tonight. So we're
Greg, Patty has something to say.
Got COVID going on.
Is the party where Patty's at? Is that what you're saying?
Hey, league office.
Yeah. Yes, you all want to party with the woman who's been wearing a mask through the whole meeting. I just want to make it clear that when we put the slate together tonight, the slate will include those positions that are automatically required by the board. So, for example, that slate will include Councilor Jake Boone moving from president to immediate past president, Mayor Keith Mays moving from vice president to president, Treasurer Tania Browning moving from treasurer to vice president, and then the progression for city managers as well. So we did not discuss that tonight, but the bylaws do require your slate to contain those automatic ascensions. So if you see it tomorrow at the annual membership meeting, I don't want you to be surprised. But the historical thing is because those are required, they will be included on your slate.
So Patty, do we need to formally make a motion for that? I thought because it was automatic, it just was understood.
You don't need a motion for it. I just don't want anybody to be surprised when they see it tomorrow.
Right. So, folks, I want to say congratulations to Mayor Burns, congratulations to Councilor Herrera, and congratulations to Councilor Pace. All right.
Chair Evans, I'd like to thank you for running this very difficult meeting. You did an excellent job, as you always do. Quite an inspirational way you run your meetings, and someday I hope I can run them as well as you, but thank you for everything.
Safe travels home,
except for the part that I stumble over. So
well, this is a really good example, though, of how we can have some pretty significant disagreements and we can do it respectfully and we can get to the right ending point from my point of view. So thank you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, so we, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with the involvement now with everybody that applied and the potential of getting them further involved next year. I'm excited about the 3 additions. And it's going to be another interesting year, an exciting year that we'll have to bob and weave and adapt because we don't know how this is all going to shake out in the next 12 months.
Mayor Callaway, you had something to say there?
Thank you. I think I was just covering my mouth. I just want to say thank you. I'll just repeat my comment that I put in the chat room. Thank you all, for your careful deliberation, and I'm humbled and honored, to serve in this role. And
I am.
And I appreciate the trust that you're placing in me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, you got some hot city council. My goodness, I know. I mean, we had another candidate from Hillsborough as well. So really, really great job of building the team there, and I know you'll do that at the League of Cities as well.
Thank you, and thank you for your kind and gracious words as well, Commissioner. And I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
Drew, did you have something or?
I did. I just want to encourage that we, although it would be hard work to expand the size of the board, in recognition that it is a shit situation to have 12 regions and trying to achieve representation across all that while also achieving representation throughout disenfranchised groups or compromised groups or minority groups is difficult if we don't get the applicants from those 12 regions. So I would like to see a bigger board.
You know what we could do is have non-voting members. I'm going to give you all my advice now that I'm leaving. So we could have a bunch of non-voting members, perhaps even moving up to be voting members if they work out, something like that. Because then at least they get to participate.
Right. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, because I'm going to shut this thing down.
Not 11 o'clock yet.
I want to thank Patty and the staff for all the work that you have put in. You've done a fantastic job. It's been really remarkable. You know, and I'm going to suggest to Mike that you all get raises. He might not agree with me, but you know that's a here nor there. I want to thank the nominating committee. You are a really august group of folks that I've had the pleasure of serving with now. And to all of the candidates for the board positions, for treasurer, for the city manager position, and for the 3 board positions that we voted on tonight. All the candidates, those who were successful, as well as those who didn't make the cut this time. Thank you for submitting your applications. We really want you to stay involved. And I know that Mayor Mays is going to figure out a way for that to happen.
Here, here.
So with that, I am going to adjourn this meeting, and that's a non-debatable item. So we are adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.